Well,
now we are live. Oh, what was that? A Western by Chicken?
Yeah, I think there was a Western by Chicken. Let me look it up.
I'm thinking it's by one of the newer big name writers, but I can't remember.
I remember. Oh, well, there was a space Western.
Well, I'm thinking of something that almost had the cover almost looked like the Lone Ranger, but it was not actually him. It was.
Evening, fellas. Just listen in the car tonight when I go pick up.
Well, the Lone Ranger had a comic from IDW or Dynamite.
Yeah, that was a whole different thing.
Yeah. Okay. Howard Chaykin's Western is called Century West, although I think it's set in the 1920s.
Okay.
A Western in the 20s.
Yes.
Interesting.
Graphic Man, we're talking about how on your aptly named 4-color fossils you did Westerns, and there wasn't one from the last 30 years on there. So we were trying to think of Westerns from the last 20 years.
Well, there was one. I showed that Geronimo.
Drive me crazy until I figure out what it is.
But I showed that Geronimo biography before I went to sleep. It was drawn by Chas Trog.
By who?
Chas Trog from Animal Man, who drew
Okay.
Grant Morrison's Animal Man.
The only Western I can think of in the last, 20 years is Desperados from Image. That was like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And Copperhead was a space Western, but I don't know if that counts.
I was thinking about Pulp by Brubaker and Phillips.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
just the cover image.
Yeah, but it's not really Western.
Okay, fair enough. But the cover image.
And his son's doing a what's the name? That Texas Blood, which I bought the first couple issues of, and it was okay, just not enough to keep me going on it. And but that's kind of a modern day Western, though. They do make books.
Yeah,
and
I don't know if it's out yet or not, but Airship 27, which does modern pulp stuff, is doing a book on Bass Reeves, and he's a very interesting guy. He was basically the African American Lone Ranger.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's a real historical figure. And
that's right. They did
pretty much a badass,
Once again, 15 years ago, Dynamite did a Lone Ranger comic. I forgot about that because Sergio Carello drew it.
Didn't John Cassidy draw one too?
He did the covers.
Covers.
But he didn't do any of the insides. Sergio did the insides.
Sergio
for a couple of years in the early 90s.
Gotcha.
What was that, Scott?
So anytime you use the word Sergio, I immediately think of Sergio Aragonés.
I know. Sergio Carello is just about the other
Sergio out there too, but it's like since somebody's last name is Kirby, Jack, of course. Yeah.
Mayo, ketchup, and mustard. I just dropped by to say hi. Maybe I can get you later. Behave.
Gus, do you come these things off the cuff, or do you have them pre-planned? Do you have like a list for the rest of the year?
I have to show you what I had to do. I don't know if you guys caught my pull list this week. This doesn't have its dust cover now, but it's the Puma Blues.
Mike Zulli?
Michael Zulli and where's my glasses? What's the other guy's name?
I know Mike Zulli, but I can't remember the other person.
Michael Zulli, the artist.
Yeah.
And Stephen Murphy is the writer.
Oh, I wouldn't have come up with that name.
This is one of my favorites. I'm a mysterious dude. I even have.
Could not answer there, Gus.
This is a page of original art from the Puma Blues that I have.
Oh.
It's like issue 19, page 1. And I wanted this one too because one of the most famous images of it, or famous as the Puma Blues, is these flying manta rays. But this is one of those things that was on my list, on my wish list on Amazon for like 6 years. I think it came out 6 years ago, and it's published by Dover, who is the same publisher who's also It's Alive.
Yeah, the Sam Glanzman.
The same Glanzman stuff, and the one I showed us.
Yeah, they've actually gotten into publishing some graphic novels over the past few years. They didn't really have much of a catalog of more than 5-10 years ago.
But the problem was it was unreadable. When I opened it up, it wouldn't even open. Like see that triangle down there?
Yeah.
That wasn't there. It was glued flat. So what I had to do was first I took my palette knife because I was like, it looks like it's sewn. But I don't know why it was glued. The binding was glued right to the spine. It was unreadable. It wouldn't. If you were to do this, it would stay open. You had to shove it down, and then it would snap right back.
There are ways to fix that.
So what I had to do was I had to work the glue off with the palette knife, and then I got a hacksaw, and I took the blade off the hacksaw and worked the blade all the way down till it came out the other side. I've never had to do this on a book before.
Yeah, that's no longer a 9.8 on CGC.
No.
And I was like, you know what? I may break the book. I don't know, but at least I can read it now. I've never seen a book where that bit, like the same Glasman book I have by the same publisher is fine. You open it up and you can read it. But this one was not. Like it, I've never had to do that before. First, I was like, I was just so angry. I was like, oh my goodness, this is just so annoying. Oh, I can't get the blade back in. Oh, there we go.
Some paperbacks over a certain size. When I mean size, I mean dimensions.
Right.
Count. Were really
but they're 100% glued.
Yeah.
They're glued. They have to be that way, and usually the binding breaks on them. This one is actually sewn. There's a sewn binding in here that you can see when you so when you open it, you're supposed to get that triangle under there so it'll open. And if you you probably can't see them, but if you look in there, you can see stitches of it being sewn. But I was just I never had to do that in a book before. First, I wasn't sure if it was sewn or not because I'm like, why is the spine? Because a book this big with a glued spine just doesn't make any sense.
I had a Dark Horse trade paperback come completely apart once, where the binding just kind of and the signatures. I'm like, bloop. Okay,
yeah.
So
the worst one I had fall apart.
Portfolio, basically.
I think I gave it away. Seth's, if it's a good life, if you don't weaken, it's one of those smaller 6x9 trade paperbacks.
Charles West is a big fan of that book.
One of my all-time favorites. I had a trade a soft cover copy of it, and within a year the pages were falling out. I mean, the glue just fell apart in it. And now I have a library copy, hardcover, which I got used. Good evening.
Yeah, Kingsport is joining us. Lefty Blues has joined us.
Got lots of people in the house tonight. But yeah, I was just like, I think I gave it away to someone because it fell apart faster than any collected edition I've ever had. Was that It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken. I don't know why. I don't know if I just got a bum copy of it, but the library copy.
Maybe the book read itself and it weakened.
Yeah, but I just read Box Office Poison. I talked about it a couple weeks ago. Whoops. And this is soft cover, glued binding. Binding's fine.
Gotta love the graphic designer that worked on the front and back covers.
And pages are yellowing a little bit because it's now 20 years old.
Right.
And it's newsprint, some kind of newsprint like that. So, but the binding is fine. So it's amazing to me that It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken binding fell apart so quickly.
Wow.
Things falling down as I get things off the shelf.
Tell me about it.
I do.
But the other
that box office poison.
What was that?
I do want that box office poison.
It's good. I think you can still get it.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you can get it out. I don't know if you can get it in Portugal or how much it would cost to ship there.
One of my stores used to have a copy about 10 years ago.
Ah. And you never picked it up?
I picked it up, flipped through it, put it back up, said to myself, next time.
Yeah. It doesn't have the most impressive art.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the art is, 90s indie art. Or it's not bad. It's just not, you're just not going to pick it up and,
You're not going to confuse it for Francie Wyeth.
Right. Right.
No, it looked good. To me, it looked good enough for a comic strip.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
It's just your average, comic book fan isn't going to pick it up and go, wow, this is great. But I certainly like I said, I bought most of the issue. I don't think I was on it from the very beginning in the 90s. I think I picked up on. Matter of fact, I went to a couple of small press expos, like in 96, 97. I may have discovered that there.
Did you go to the ones in Baltimore or in Maryland?
Yeah, in Silver Spring. Yeah.
Bethesda.
Right. It was in Silver Spring then.
Gotcha.
I think they moved since then to
it's about
someplace nearby.
It's about 4.5, 5 hours north of me. So
it's about 5 hours south of me. Matter of fact, there's
kind of halfway.
There's a story that goes with me going to the Small Press Expo. In terms of that was when that was like the year before my friends and I self-published our comic. Okay, so we're like, we got to do stuff. So we were going to go to the Small Press Expo to check it out,
right? See
what it was all about. See if we could learn some stuff before we published our comic. So, my friend Ed lived in Brooklyn then, so I trucked it down to Brooklyn. Friday night we were hanging out, doing whatever, and Saturday we were going to get up early, go to the Small Press Expo, and come home Saturday night. Go to our friends. She had an engagement party that night, so we had to get up real early. We were catching like a 6 o'clock bus out of Port Authority bus terminal, and it was an express bus. It went right to Silver Spring, but it took 5 hours, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say for a bus, it would take even longer than if you're driving a car.
Yeah. So, well, actually not, because it's an express. Yeah, I think there may have been one stop where we stopped for like 10 minutes to do whatever and then go. So it was
driving a car.
It was as fast as you could get there in a car because there were no stops. If you were to take the local, that'd be a whole different story. Right. So, we caught the 6 o'clock bus of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That brought us there about 11.
All right.
But at about 9 o'clock, I was sitting there with my friend Ed. We're chatting. All of a sudden he goes, uh-oh. And I'm like, what? And he's like, how come this ad says that the Small Press Expo is next weekend?
Oh.
I was like, because he was the one in charge of the travel plans for this. And I was just like, and sure enough, it was next weekend. So we got off in Silver Spring, Maryland. Hung out for the day. Got back on like a 3 o'clock bus. And then went to our friend's party. And the whole time I was like, people are going to be laughing at me and saying, it's your own fault for leaving the plans to Ed. And then we had to do it again the next week. It was like, that was rough. That was rough.
I would have been pissed off. I was like, I was pissed. 5 hours in transit, and then I got to wait around 3 and then go back.
I was so pissed off that for 2 hours, all I did was look out the window. I couldn't say, and Ed just kind of sat there like,
yeah. Many years ago in 1988, pre-internet, didn't have cell phones, nothing like that. We're driving from here, which is in southwestern Virginia. We're going down to Greensboro, North Carolina. It's about a 3-hour drive. Going to see Iron Maiden in concert. Get all the way down there. Find out the show had been canceled. Nobody even said a word to me on the whole way back home because they knew I was like not
nothing to say.
I was so mad I didn't even say anything.
That was me. Yeah. Like I said, and we still had 2 hours of the bus trip to go.
That was the quietest drive back home I think I've ever spent with anybody.
But at that Small Press Expo the next week, I think that's when I discovered Box Office Poison and Finder by Carla Speed McNeil.
Right.
And David Yurkovich, Death by Chocolate, which were 3 of my favorites.
Was Chris Staros at that show?
Not that I know of.
I'm just curious.
He may have been. But if he was there, I didn't know. But we went back the following year, too. Hello, Jack Yo.
Chris Staros was what was the name of the company?
Top Shelf.
Top Shelf, yeah. I just finished listening to an interview that Dan Shaheen did a couple of weeks ago to the guy who created Owly. And
I've never read Owly, but I've heard good things about it. I have a friend at the librarian in Brooklyn, actually. She's a big Owly fan.
Yeah, I have one of the books. Bought it for like $5. One of my best purchases ever. It's a very fun read, even without any words.
That's cool.
Okay, I don't think I know that one. Ollie?
Howley.
O-W-L-Y. It's the word owl with a Y on it.
Ah, Howley. Yeah, I don't think I know that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's aimed at kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the creator, Indy Runton, was complaining about Chris Staros because their relationship deteriorated.
I've heard that happen sometimes.
It does.
I became aware of Chris Staros because he put out a little pamphlet's not the right word. It's a professional magazine, but it's small, like digest size. It's called the Staros Report.
Okay.
Basically reviews of all these different graphic novels, all indie graphic novels he had read. That was before he ever did anything at Top Shelf.
I think that Box Office Poison collection is Top Shelf.
Might be.
Are they still around, Top Shelf?
Or no, they sold to IDW.
Okay, that's what I think. I thought I remembered something like that, but I wasn't 100%.
Oh yeah, they were also publishing the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen stuff too.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
And talk about time flying. Here is something I started reading. This is Black Hole by Charles Byrne, minus its dust jacket. So, but it's funny because this is one. I think this came out in 2005. I bought it in 2006. And when I read it in 2006, I was disappointed by it. But it was one of those where I was like, sometimes you read something, you don't like it. And occasionally I go, you know what? I think it might just be me. I think I might have been in the wrong mood. I think I might have been. Sometimes when I read something, I'm just not in the mood for it. It doesn't come across right. And I always thought that was the case with it because I've read some of his others, like I forget his 3-part book that's come out in the last 10 years. I forget the name of it, but I read those and really liked them. So I'm like, you know what? I want to read it again because I think it was me at the time. That's why it wasn't the book, it was me. That's why I didn't like it. Because it's something that should be up my alley. I like the artwork. It sounds interesting. Meanwhile, 15 years goes by. In all those 15 years, I'm like, I should really reread Black Hole by Charles Byrne. And I just never did. And I finally started reading it again about halfway through it, where there's my bookmark. I'm really enjoying it now. So I think it was just like it's sometimes I can read something and I just wasn't in a good mood. Whatever it was, I'm like, I should have liked that, but it just disappointed me. and then I go back and read it a while later and enjoy it more.
I've had the exact opposite happen too. It's like, why did I like this?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes things don't hold up to your memory of them.
No, they don't.
But that's usually when you were a
TV
child.
shows from the 70s.
Yeah, that's usually when I'm a child. Like, it's like the stuff that you loved when you were 14. You go back and read it now and go,
Sometimes.
There's rarely something I loved when I was 35, and I go back and read it, and I'm like, But I guess it probably happened every now and then. I can't think of anything, though. But it's funny, something that I went back and read from my childhood and liked more, which happens on occasion, I guess, is the John Carter Warlord of Mars series from Marvel.
Oh, the ones that they had some Gil Kane covers.
Yeah.
Roy
Thomas wrote a few of them.
I was trying to remember who the interior.
I think John Buscema drew. They were the standard Marvel 70s guys who did it. And I bought some of it when I was a kid, and to me, it was a middle-of-the-road standard Marvel 70s comic. But I think it was when the movie came out, they came out with an omnibus of it.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
I got that omnibus for like $30.
Yeah, it was pretty cheap. It was black and white.
No, it was color.
No, the one I have is black and white.
The one I had was color. You may have gotten did they do a mass?
Essential.
An essential of it?
No, it's regular paper, but it's not colored.
The one I had was the oversized omnibus.
Mine's normal size. It's normal.
Okay.
Jared, yours is a hardback, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a hardback, right? Yeah, like I said, I wasn't a fan of it that much as a kid, but reading it as about 5 years ago, whenever the movie came out, I think everything is 5 years ago, until proven differently, which I'm always proven differently.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. It was kind of like it's the type of comic that's extinct now. A lot of one and two stories. Very plot driven, sort of a lot to read. And I always hear people complain about comics being overwritten. I only complain about them being overwritten if I don't like the writing. If I like the writing, it's not overwritten. And it was just really an interesting little look back at, I really enjoyed reading those.
Had you ever read the original Edgar Rice Burroughs story?
No. Okay. The only Edgar Rice Burroughs I've ever read is a Tanar of Pellucidar story I read many years ago. When I was
never read Tarzan?
No, I never read Tarzan's.
Okay. I have two Tarzan novels from Penguin when they went into the public domain.
I have a whole bunch of Rice Burroughs.
You know what it is, too? Sometimes in my early 20s, I really stopped reading novels and started reading nonfiction. Okay. And it's only been in the last 5 years I've started reading novels again. Once again, there's that 5-year timeline. Could be 3 years.
There's kind of a comics tie-in to that whole thing, too, because before Disney got the rights to the John Carter movie, right, it was being done by Kevin and Kerry Conran, who did Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow at Paramount.
Which reminds me,
hold on. Kerry was the art director. I'll wait till he gets back to tell you. Hello, Saul. Most Edgar Rice Burroughs is worth reading. I mean, 95% of it, if not more.
In this week's Comic Shop Weekly, we have, where does it say? Kevin Conrad, Sky Captain and the Art of Tomorrow, Deluxe Edition hardcover.
Look, I'm ticked off about because
I know
it's 7 years late, guys.
It's a lavishly produced slipcase hardcover limited to 1,000 copies that chronicles the history and making of the landmark film. This leather-bound limited edition also includes a blueprint mini poster, a letter, a membership card, and an embroidered patch and an art print. So maybe it's finally coming out.
There's another regular version of it too. Doesn't have all those extras. It's supposed to be coming out. But the book is literally 7 years late.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned it.
And he said a few months ago, I don't know, 10 or 11 months ago, it's finally going to come out, and then it got pushed back again.
I noticed.
I'm done. Until I actually see a copy in front of me, it doesn't exist. Anyways, so when they were working on the movie at Paramount, the first 3 artists that the art director, which Carey, picked were Michael Kaluta, Bernie Wrightson, and William Stout. I'm like, you couldn't have picked 3 better artists to work on Edgar Rice Burroughs. But once they found out it was all work for hire, everybody went bye-bye. And they didn't have any rights to their artwork, anything. So that never happened. They did a demo reel that showed some of the ideas they were going to use. But just the thought of those 3 guys working on Princess of Mars is, I cry. I mean, it's like the Lost Library of Alexandria, is what could have been.
Friar Tuck can't focus on novels, so that's rough.
That's because Robin Hood keeps hitting him in the head.
7 years late. Where are the NFTs? There we go.
Oh, God, NFTs. Jeez.
And let's see, the first comic I got this week is a terrible cover of Cerebus Batvark Coronavirus.
That is a
fewer typos. The turd brown cover background color fans crave.
That's a terrible. I mean, everything about that cover is bad. The drawing, the graphics, the font.
There's nothing good about this cover. And what's funny is,
he's mocking his customers.
Yeah, it's
both of them.
Yeah. No, he gives the print run. He numbers each comic is numbered. So this is 1572 of 2167.
Man, that's a low print run.
And the print run goes up and down depending on the parody cover.
Right.
And usually it drops as low as 1,500 and it goes as high as 3,500 copies, right about there. So this one dropped pretty low because even though it says Batvark, because I think like of course, like Batman covers are going to sell more than Strangers in Paradise. I think that was one of his parodies recently. And you just, Batman's going to sell a lot more, 1,000 more copies easily than Strangers in Paradise. So I think this one dropped pretty low because of that terrible cover. Because there's obviously 1,000 people who buy this just for the cover and not for the comic strips inside.
I just had an idea for the worst cover of all time.
Yeah.
No images. You just write on the cover in type font. One breast, first breast, second breast, vagina.
Marvel did do a generic cover.
Yeah.
It was just white, had a UP symbol, and just traditional black text like you'd see on generic.
I think I have that
products.
I think I have that buried somewhere in my collection.
Yeah, the generic comic.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a joke. I think that the comic doesn't have credits, but I think Steve Gerber wrote it.
Right.
He admitted to writing it. I think.
Right. It's all a problem. It's a problem for all millennials not being able to read a book. Could be.
Something in the water, maybe. Oh, millennials don't drink water. They drink Mountain Dew.
Yeah. I should drink smart water. Well, I don't know. Millennials are old now. They may be off Mountain Dew. They're not young anymore.
Kombucha.
Is that for millennials or for middle-aged people who think they're still young?
Both.
It's a floor wax. It's a dessert topping.
It's Alec Holland in a bottle.
But there's a new Spider-Man story coming. Hard Devil's Reign with I don't know. I read about it. The Kingpin, blah 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 blah. They said the Kingpin married someone at some point too. I forget who did they say the Kingpin? I was like, really? Man, there's all sorts of stuff going on that I don't know about.
Is it Aunt May?
It was not Aunt May.
Aunt May is like the Taylor of the Marvel universe.
Typhoid Mary? No, that's his. Kingpin became mayor.
Yeah, that's true.
Of New York?
Yeah. That was actually good.
I mean, if Kingpin was real, he would have died from a heart attack by now.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Actually, that's true. When I heard the what was the name of the actor, Vincent D'Onofrio. When I first saw how much weight Vincent D'Onofrio put on to play Kingpin, man, that is not good for your health.
No, it's not.
It was a wedding between Wilson Fisk and Typhoid Mary. So that's who he married.
But they were already stooping. Why do they need to get married?
He wanted to make an honest woman out of her, obviously.
Of Typhoid Mary.
I'm surprised you could say that with a straight face.
Doc Ock is getting back together with Aunt May. Yes, we can only hope. Those were some of the earliest Spider-Mans I read, but they were back issues to me. I remember getting some of those Doc Ock marrying Aunt May issues when I was like 10 or 11 or 12.
I think they need to bring back the kid that collected Spider-Man to break up that marriage.
Imagine that. He can read novels, just my dialysis eyes changed the plot a wee bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also in this, I forgot to mention before when I was talking about the Puma Blues, there was never an ending to this. So I think they wrote an ending for this book.
So there's newer material in it?
There's newer material, and there's also, they put in this, there was a Puma Blues mini comic written by Alan Moore.
It sounds vaguely
in the back.
Yeah.
What is it? There, I don't know how many pages. There, it's a mini comic published at mini size in the back.
In the original aspect ratio. Yeah.
Yeah. The Puma Blues number 24.5. And I'm not sure if there was 2 issues that are in here that never came out. So it's I have all the original Puma Blues stuff except for those last couple of issues.
I have so many series from that time frame where they just never finished and you never got a resolution. Yeah.
I also noticed maybe because it's an 8.5, the art looks a little small floating on the page there. I don't know if it's comic book size.
Just because the space around the borders is.
Yeah, looks bigger than it was in the comic. I don't know.
I noticed that.
Maybe because they knew the binding wouldn't open up, they made it a little. But that's still the. That looks short. I mean, this looks like a European graphic album shrunk down, but it's not. It was comic book size when it was first published.
So it's almost somebody didn't select the right image size when they went to print it.
Yeah, see, I don't know what it is, but I'm definitely disappointed by this hardcover in general.
Maybe they didn't have original art and they had to do it from scans
and
reduced it in order to not lose resolution.
Doesn't look like it's from the resolution. Looks okay. I mean, you can see a lot of the. I'm gonna have to compare it to the original now that I can open it. But there was nothing like this at the time. It was described as sort of a futurist environmental comic. Right. It took place in the future when the environment had gone a little crazy, symbolized by manta rays flying around in the air.
Does it tell you in the issue what the original publication date was?
I have the original. No, it doesn't. They never do that in the indicia anymore. But it was like the mid '80s that originally.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. This came out in 2015. The Puma Blues Book 1. The Puma. There were some trades of it too. What is it? An introduction by Dave Sim, acknowledgments, the Puma Blues, acts of faith. Matter of fact, if I remember correctly, this became sticking point between the distributors and Dave Sim. Because when Dave Sim first came out with some of those phone book editions, he was only doing the mail order. He wasn't doing them through comic shops. And comic shops in retaliation told him they weren't going to distribute Puma Blues.
Gotcha.
And any of his others, because he was the original publisher on this, I think, was Aardvark Van Hunter.
Oh, it was Tundra. I don't know.
They may have taken it over at some point. Let me see if it says.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I looked at
all the issues off my shelf.
Terrence said his copy of Puma Blues fell apart too.
Yeah. Mine isn't falling apart. I have to show Terrence. I took a hacksaw blade and shoved it all along the spine so that it would open up like this. So now it's no longer glued to the spine. There's a sewn binding in there. So I took first I took my palette knife and shoved it down there. And then I took a hacksaw blade, which is, that long, and shoved it all the way down there. So it opened up my binding.
He did a Spinal Tap on it.
Yeah. I've never had to do that on a book before.
Yeah.
Strong work, yeah. Hacksaw bladed it. Let's see, the next thing I got is the Dragon Bellow Conspiracy, Usagi Yojimbo.
Nice.
Another
Peterson cover.
And it's funny, this is I have been waiting for this one guy here, Jen, who's the Rhino.
Yeah.
I think it said this issue came out in 1989. And since then, Jen has appeared with his horn cut off.
Yeah.
It's only that long and flat. And I was like, I don't remember him getting his horn cut off. I wonder when he got it cut off. It was in this story. He gets his horn cut off.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the way I'm used to seeing him, is with the.
Me too, by the blind pig. So it was early on, in 1989 that he got his horn cut off. Matter of fact, there he is. All of a sudden, his horn. He's like, "Ha! You cut my horn!"
Hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
If it was a Star Wars book, it would have been his hand.
Then Usagi shows up with the thunder and lightning behind him. But good stuff. This is one of the sort of more epic Usagi stories, because usually Usagi stories are fairly short, 1, 2, 3 issues. This one I think is at least 6. So that's pretty cool. Revisiting that one in color.
Yeah, it works just as well in black and white and color both ways.
It does. I enjoyed it in black and white. Now I'm enjoying it in color. You know what? I'd be enjoying The Walking Dead in color now if it wasn't $4 an issue coming out twice a month. I want to check the sales on that. See, because when they first announced that they were doing The Walking Dead in color as individual issues, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I would read it all over again in color month to month, because that's how I read it in black and white. But then they were like, Walking Dead was like a $3 comic all the way to the end. Then they're like, oh, it's a $4 comic and it's coming out twice a month. I'm like, I'm not paying $8 a month for The Walking Dead. I'm just not.
$96 a year.
Yeah, not when you can get the trades for cheaper than a lot cheaper than that. And I'm sure the black and white trades will come out even cheaper once the color ones are out. So I ended up not getting those. But I'm like, I wonder what the sales on those are. I keep meaning to check.
No idea.
Because I never see them mentioned anywhere.
Well, I'm not sure that they can do sales anymore. When Marvel and DC split from Diamond, Comic-Con has no way to ascertain how much the comic is selling.
Okay, well, Comic-Con can still do The Walking Dead, can it?
Yeah,
and I mean, yeah, and there's like 5 covers to every issue too of the Walking Dead Deluxe. I wonder, like, who's collecting those?
Not me.
I have zero interest in Walking Dead. Always had zero interest in Walking Dead.
I have a little bit less than that.
I was an early reader of The Walking Dead. I read it all the way through. I enjoyed it. But I really don't have that strong an interest in going back and rereading it.
See, I'm the guy that was picking the plot apart. It was like, what was happening in the rest of the world? How did the virus start? You know,
well, that didn't matter. That 100% did not matter.
Right.
I know that's because you're a zombie. That's what matters to zombie fans. That never mattered to Robert Kirkman. That never mattered in The Walking Dead.
I'm not a zombie fan. That's just the way I am. I was like, I want to know.
I know a lot of people are like that, but he said from the beginning, none of that matters. We're not going into that, and that was fine with me. I didn't care. Now that stuff matters. I'm not a backstory fan. Like my friend Rob is a big backstory fan. Yeah. He loves prequels. I just don't. I'm just like, I don't care. I want the story, not the backstory.
And there was a guy who did the math, is taking into account the number of zombies that they kill per episode, and assuming that 1% of the United States population survived the zombie apocalypse.
Once again, all that math is based on assumptions, so I pay no attention to it. What if it's not 1%? What if it's 1% of 1% of 1%?
Maybe they're the only survivors. But assuming 1%, and evenly distributed across the USA, every zombie in North America would be killed by the end of the first season.
Unless his completely made up numbers don't jive with completely made up numbers of the show. It's like I always hated.
I've seen like maybe 3 parts of 3 different episodes of the show, and I'm watching. I'm like, okay, first of all, who's mowing their lawn? Yeah. Where's their electricity coming from?
Yeah. One of the guys asked, why are they always walking? Why aren't they riding bicycles?
Because they like to walk. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm just like, when people, if I'm going to accept that there are zombies, I can accept that people aren't riding bicycles.
No.
I just find the stuff that bothers people can be. I mean, there's stuff that bothers me at times too. But where people draw their lines is weird to me sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's like I consider zombies to be boring.
Bicycles. Huh? What was that?
I consider zombies to be boring, so I am always picking it apart. So when other people are picking it apart, yeah, you're right.
The whole point was, if you've read The Walking Dead, the zombies are only there as they represent immediate instant death. There's nothing which is why a lot of zombie fans didn't like them, because they were the zombie fans. I mean, the zombies were irrelevant to The Walking Dead. They were just there to provide sudden and instant death. Other than that, the story was about the survivors. And that's what a lot of you don't know how many times I had to explain that to all my horror zombie movie fans at the beginning of because they just didn't get it. They were just like, they were saying, well, how come the zombies why did everybody die? Where's this? It's like, no, none of that matters. That's not the story. But this is what happens after the zombie movie ends.
It may not have been his intent, but the way you just explained it almost sounds like the literary version of a video game.
No, because it's so far from that, because instant death doesn't happen all the time. In a video game, it's constant death. And the Walking Dead, there's the plot going on, but then to mess up the plot, there's instant death. So it's not nearly as exciting as a video game. I don't play video games at all. I've never played a video game. I've never had a video game machine. And the only game I still have in my computer is Civilization 3, which is like 15 years old.
That's technically a video game.
nowadays they give very long plots to video games.
Yeah.
Instant backstory. And well, let's see, what's the most successful games in the history of video games? What's the plot of Pac-Man? What's the plot of Space Invaders? There's no plot. It's it's simple. That's why people like it. You just show up. Okay, let's eat balls until the phantoms hit me. And Space Invaders, shoot them. They're coming, and you shoot them.
The games.
Why do people still play Pong? Why do people still play Pong?
Most people don't play Pong. Yeah.
Well, no. If I give you a chance to play Pong, let's play Pong right now. You will play Pong.
The Walking Survivors. It was around issue 25 of The Walking Dead that Rick had his 2-page spread where he said, we are the Walking Dead, and that was the whole point of the book. The Walking Dead are the people, not the zombies. Did a really great video game of 13. I remember that one. That was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. I know this French guy. He has a YouTube channel, but only like 5 people watch it. He did a walkthrough of the Black Sad video game. Because it's a detective story, so it's like those old games where you have to talk to people, right. And you have to choose what you say.
Yeah, and how many people in North America know who Black Sad is?
Not many.
Not a ton. I've never read it, but I know what it is. And another comic I bought because the writer and the cover caught my eye. Human Remains, a Vault comic. Peter Milligan is the writer. Who's the artist? Sally Cantrino. And the art's kind of cool. It's got an indie comic sort of Carla Speed McNeil vibe. Yeah. But the plot made me roll my eyes, but it's actually different. It's actually a different cliche than I thought. Because the plot says Dax and Lisa love each other, but in this new and terrifying world, love is dangerous. Feeling anything is dangerous. Earth has a new and terrible invader, monsters that deprive us of the very feelings that make us human. A shocking tale of pent-up emotions, perilously loud sex, and forged composure in the face of unspeakable horror. I was like, oh, another one where, the government outlaws emotions. Which,
I saw the movie.
Yeah, exactly. But it turns out it's not that. It's another movie you saw. It's strong noises and emotions attract these giant monsters that kill you.
Oh, that's Tremors, isn't it?
Monster. Huh. So it's The Quiet Place. It's Bird Box.
Tremors.
It's
part of Dune. Yeah.
And The Walking Dead.
If you feel too strong an emotion, these giant monsters come and eat you. So you have to keep it under wraps and keep things down. And it was well done. I enjoyed it, but I was just like, eh.
So there's no NBA?
I guess no. There's no. A lot of people are already dead, I think, and
all the NBA fans and people playing in Las Vegas.
And of course, the funny part was they had when it was first happening, a whole bunch of people denied it and said the government was taking away their freedoms and it was all a hoax. But then they all died because if you make noise, the monsters come and kill you. So.
Gee, where have we seen that sort of thing before?
But it was solidly done. I must say, I enjoyed it, but I don't know if I'm going to get any more.
A little cliche. Yeah.
And I really do like that cover, though. The color, it's just sort of it's a bloody landscape is what it is.
I don't like the font up at the top, but the rest of it looks fun.
Yeah, the logo's not great, but
it's better than the Norse mythology logo. I'll give it that.
It's better than that logo you couldn't read.
Yeah. I mean, if they took the logo right off it, I would probably... I generally like my comic books with logos rather than the virgin variants. Because I think like the trade dress is part of what makes a comic book cover. But in this case, I'd like to see about it. Because there almost is no trade dress and the logo is at best. It really is a bloody landscape. All these are blood splat here. All this red on the green. All that red on the green. But that was the one issue I picked up this week. And the one thing I didn't pick up this week was Echolands, issue number 2, the J.H. Williams one that opened sideways.
Yeah, I remember.
Which was really nice to look at, but I just decided it wasn't worth $5.
Is the whole series going to be in landscape format?
Yeah, the whole series is going to be in landscape format, which I think he did a really good job with that. Mm-hmm. But I said to myself, $5 an issue, and it's 20 pages for $5 an issue. So I was just kind of like, you know what? I'd rather wait and see if they have put out a nice hardcover of it.
Right.
I just don't like it $5 an issue.
It would be awful if they reformatted the hardcover. It was just a regular.
Yeah, that would be awful.
What?
That's like, what else did I see in here that was coming out? Oh no, I think it was that one I was showing last week that had the record in it. I think it was I forget the name of it, by the 3 kids walk into a bank team that I had a record come with it. $15. But I think they said the first issue was going to be like $5, but it was going to be 60 pages, which sounds like a good. And I think the next issues were going to be $4 and 40 pages. So it's like, I'll buy that just on the page count alone. It's kind of like. I picked it up and it's like many almost incoherent. All I figured is the girl in red is running from someone. Yeah, that was about the first issue. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't worth $5 an issue to me. Took place in the future. There was a girl in red. There was some sci-fi and magic stuff going on, and she was running.
It wasn't at all like a futuristic Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah, it was kind of what it was like. Okay. But I have to say the vertical storytelling was especially brilliant, because it is a completely different thing storytelling in a regular comic book as to a vertical comic book. You have to rethink the whole way you visually tell a story, and he did a nice job of it. I almost want to pick it up just for that.
Speaking of that, I still cannot read manga printed in the original Japanese format going from backwards compared to what we're used to. I can't do it.
Oh no?
No.
I can.
If the beginning of that book does not start in the top left, my brain says no.
I got used to it. I'll give it 5 or 6 issues, easier to resell. You might be right. Like I said, another one of the reasons it wasn't worth $5 to me is I already had $30 worth of comics this week, which is a lot for me. I had 8 comics, I think, and that's about as that's the top of my spending in a week for comics. So I didn't want to add another $5 on top of that. I've always felt individual comics are too expensive. Trade paper, I'm a better deal. Wish individual issues would become digital with the options to buy paper. Huh? See that that brings us into our Brooklyn Bridge. My Brooklyn Bridge idea of comics, where I've said this before on this show. As you're driving down the FDR coming up to the Brooklyn Bridge,
I remember.
There's 2 lanes that you're supposed to get over to in order to go across the Brooklyn Bridge. Those lanes easily back up. So you got 2 choices. You can be the asshole who drives to the front and cuts in, or you can be the sucker who sits in the line. Those are your 2 choices, sucker or asshole. You don't get a third choice. I find it's the same way with comics, in that you can be the asshole who waits for the trade paperback, who all the suckers subsidize. The reason the trade paperback is cheaper is because all the suckers, me, buy the individual issues. So it's like, that's what I feel like with comics sometimes. And I just didn't want to be a sucker for Echolands. I'll be the asshole and wait
That's
for
just one more reason I wish the American publishers would adopt that European album format.
Yeah, and stop thinking that you have to have 22 pages of comics every month. Maybe if it takes you 3 years until you come up with a better story, do those 3 years.
That doesn't get you your monthly money.
No, it doesn't.
That's not
But you know what? It does. People in France who buy comics regularly, they do buy comics every month. They do buy comics every week. It's just not the same one.
And there, it is so tough to change your business paradigm.
Mm.
I mean, who knows? French comics may make even more money publishing monthly issues, but they won't because they'd have to change their paradigm.
Oh no! Here's the thing: these comics used to be pre-published in a weekly magazine.
Yeah, but that's different.
And then they disappeared in the 80s.
An individual comic.
And they disappeared in the 80s.
Yeah.
So they've already adapted.
Yeah. If my pull was minimal, I'd probably put Echolands on it too. But mine's pretty busy. Like I said, I've got 8 comics this week. I'm reading the English version. He created Astro Boy. Oh, okay. The only thing I've tried to read of his recently was The Buddha, and that was just not. I just didn't like it.
I don't know.
Yep. Yep. I'm the sucker. You're the a-hole. Those are our only 2 choices.
Yes, I chose many years ago to become smart and become an asshole.
Right.
Always the asshole.
And you overachieve.
There's no choice where you can feel good about yourself. You're either the sucker or the asshole. That's it.
I feel very good about myself.
Assholes usually do feel good about being assholes.
I was going to job application recently, and they have these different categories. Are you more like this? You more like this? And no matter which way you answer, you end up looking like a jerk either way.
Yeah.
It's like, I hate this. This is terrible.
Yeah, if there's a new series I want to read, I buy the TPBs or graphic novels. An artist I like, I buy the singles. See, I only buy artists I like. Generally, I follow creators rather than series.
Right.
Put me down on the side of Eurostyle comics. Yeah.
There was another reason why it was easy to transition to graphic novels only in France, because you always have to pay the original artists royalties. So every story is designed to end. Then the original artist will start working on a new one.
Don't tell Marvel about paying royalties to the artists.
Yeah,
mangas do have a really good model, but their model depends upon a distribution system that just doesn't exist here in the U.S.
Right.
The U.S. companies couldn't do that. They don't have the distribution system. Oops. I was reading heavy metal at 14 in America has never caught back up. See, I have no problem with monthly comics. I like monthly comics. I like the periodical nature of them. I like going into the comic shop. I like talking with people about comics. I like coming on YouTube and talking about the monthly comics and living with them from week to week and month to month.
Right.
I just don't like being a sucker all the time.
You would think, I mean, this is cultural differences. You would think there would be room for both.
Good afternoon, Sleepy Reader.
Oh, Damien.
System. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. Well, the distribution system
then it goes back. Then it goes back to my usual criticism that the direct market allowed superhero fans to take over the industry, and now everything needs to be done according to the superhero paradigm.
That's not necessarily. I've had this discussion so many times. Matter of fact, up in my memories on Facebook came to me complaining about this. Is that superheroes? First of all, the direct sales system saved comics, because comics were the only people left buying comics by the late 70s were teenage boys and us grown-up teenage boys.
Right.
So that's why superheroes were the last thing standing. And the newsstands were abandoning comics.
Yep.
So the distribution system, the direct sales actually saved comics. Without it, comics would be gone. As a consequence of that, superheroes being the only thing superheroes dominated before direct sales, but they dominated even more afterwards because the regular folk just left comics behind. So direct sales wasn't responsible for the superheroes dominating. Direct sales saved the superhero comics. They just couldn't save everything else because it didn't really exist anymore over here, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of ironic considering the comic that pretty much saved Marvel from going out of business was not a superhero comic.
No, but it was a
fantasy comic aimed at young boys,
teenage boys.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Same Shonen Jump Digital is $1.99. Yeah, I've almost subscribed to Shonen Jump Digital, but then I was like, monthly. So I don't know if monthly comics is addictive. I just like it. I mean, I think addictive is too strong a word.
It's one thing I have noticed is like the local Barnes and Noble now. Its manga section's 5 to 10 times bigger than the European, North American books they sell. But every time I go in there, they have the same damn manga books all the time. It doesn't look like they've sold any of them.
Yeah. Well, to me, the reason manga books are growing more than other comics is it's cheap foreign labor. It's already been paid for. It's already made its money, so they can export them to the U.S. for really cheap. It's as if Japan could sell cars here for $5,000. Of course, they'd make a fortune.
Right.
Of course, all of them. That's kind of what these mangas are.
Yeah, the American series that we have here now only come out in hardcover collections. These hardcovers are cheaper than American TPBs.
Yeah, Shonen Jump are cheap because we're a secondary market. Exactly. He's feeling you, Paolo. They're agreeing with you. I forget what they were agreeing with.
Well, we are the assholes, so we agree with each other.
Doesn't cost them anything. It may bring new. Yeah. Direct sales follow the market.
Which is another thing. Now the French comics, but the French comics they do get paid with royalties. That's why they're more expensive in the US.
Right.
Well, also in France, there's a subsidy as well.
Yes, but not for everybody.
Not for everybody, but in comparison to the U.S. market, it may as well be everybody. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of, I should have waited for the trade, but that would probably mean I'd never buy it. It's funny because somewhere from like 2008 to 2010, there really weren't many monthly comics that I liked. I was like getting Usagi Yojimbo, the Terry Moore stuff, until the Image Revolution in like 2012, the second one. There really wasn't many monthly comics. So I was buying collected editions of stuff. And one of the problems I had was I ended up with a lot of crappy collected editions. Because I find with like trade paperbacks and collected editions, cheap is good. So sometimes you'll go, oh, this collected edition is $6. I may as well buy it. Then you get it home and it's a piece of crap. The next thing you know, you've got that much shelf space where it's of crap.
Yeah.
And it gets overwhelming. But one of the things I bought in collected edition was Lock and Key. But then like in 2012 or so, when I started buying, there started being a lot more comics for me out there. I stopped buying collected editions. And now I say, when I buy something in when I say, oh, I'll get that in collected edition, it almost always means I'll never buy it. Because I don't get around to it. I get collected editions and stuff like for my birthdays and Christmas or whatever. Or occasionally, like this one was on for 6 years on my wish list. I finally this week I was like, it's $20. I may as well get it. But I think there was 5 or 6 Lock and Key. There were 6 Lock and Key hardcovers, and then the story ended. But then a couple of years after that, they started coming out with individual issues, new story, but not part of that same story. They were like different times.
Okay, gotcha.
Same creators, Joe Hill and what's his name, Gabriel Rodriguez, is it? And I always said to myself, "Oh, I'll pick up those hardcovers when I get a chance." They're still on my. I haven't picked up any of them. Right. So it was the last Lock and Key miniseries. I finally went, you know what? I should put these on my pull list. So I started with the last one, buying the Lock and Key individual issues, just because. And then they did this Sandman crossover. And I'm not a Sandman fan. I've only read a couple issues of Sandman.
I am a Sandman fan, but I have very little interest in a crossover with another property.
This was really, really good. I have to say, I enjoyed the first issue, but the second issue, then this is the end of the story, was just so good.
Was Joe Hill writing those two?
Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. And it's and at first I was like, it's a $7 comic. I was like, wow, that's expensive. But it's 48 pages, all comic. So it's 2 comics. So $7 actually isn't that expensive at all. It's a little cheap. But it's just so good. The story is the woman is from the last Lock and Key story, which takes place in World War I. And her brother took one of the keys and tried to fight in World War I.
I see where this is going. Yeah.
Ended up fleeing. Some German soldiers came back through the doorway to his house, ended up killing his mother. And the kid felt so guilty, he killed himself because he knew he'd go to hell if he killed himself. That's how guilty he felt. So now his sister his younger sister, he was like a teenager at the time, maybe 16. So his younger sister, who was maybe 10, grew up, and her father is now dying, and her father is tortured by the fact that his son is in hell. So she decides she's going to try to use the keys to rescue her little brother from hell. And the idea is that she's going to, and like I said, I know almost nothing about Sandman, but you guys explained it to me like 6 months ago when the first issue came out. In like the 1920s, the Sandman was held captive in this guy's basement in London.
Yep.
So she gets an audience with him, goes to talk to the Sandman. He won't even talk to her, but she trades a couple of the keys or lends them out for some of the Sandman's items.
Okay.
And she ends up, she's talking to a bunch of the characters who is Etrigan, the rhyming demon, before he's a in this issue, he gets promoted to a rhyming demon, Etrigan. He's in there. So there's lots of other Sandman characters, including Lucifer. So she ends up, since she has all these keys and key knowledge, making herself the key to hell, which makes her ruler of hell. And she ends up going to hell with the Sandman stuff and challenging Lucifer to a battle for her brother's soul. And it's just so well done. It is just
that universe really well.
If you were to describe this to me, there's almost nothing about that situation that I find particularly interesting. But this was just so well done. I loved it. I have to say, I was really blown away by this issue.
I just want to comment on a couple of the comments we had. Lefty Blues.
Let's go back and see what we got.
I'm aware of that channel and subscribed to it, but I'm also subscribed to 300-400 other channels on YouTube. I just don't have enough time to keep track of them all.
Right. Yeah, manga, of course, is driven by the availability of anime, just like G.I. Joe and Transformers were in the 80s.
Yeah.
A lot of publishers, weak link, direct sales comics are decreasing.
Well, I wonder how much of that has to do with the breakup of the Diamond as monopoly on the distribution.
No, it was already. The thing is, and I don't think publishers want to admit this, but they have too much product coming out every month, especially with the same brand, and it all looks derivative.
Well, yeah, when you got 52 Batman titles coming out in 1 month.
Yeah, what for? Okay, there's no such thing as too much garlic.
That's what I was going to say. What is this concept of too much garlic? What kind of
I don't know what he's up to.
that?
Though I have to say, I have to agree with him only that I bought garlic hummus this week.
It's good stuff.
And on the top of garlic hummus, they've got garlic sprinkled across the top. I should have mixed it all in.
Yeah.
Eat the garlic. Lick the garlic.
Oh, I have no problem with the garlic.
It
was just better when it was evenly distributed.
Gotcha. Red pepper hummus is like that too.
Yeah. I tried some black bean hummus last week, and it was really good. Never had that.
Time. I like hummus quite a bit.
Diamond has been shorting everybody for the past 6 months. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Well, Diamond, can't get their comics like they used to.
Now the publishers might say, "Oh, if we add up all the sales, but we canceled most of those books, the top wouldn't sell the total of all those derivative comics. Probably not, but you would focus resources on something that you can actually promote, and Marvel and DC don't know how to promote anything that is not a #1 issue right now. They don't know how to promote monthly.
Yeah.
Also, they and it's all driven by cover prices now. As I've said before, selling 100,000 $4 comics is the same as selling 25,000, same selling $400,000 comics. Right. So it's like that's how they've kept their profits are good, Marvel and DC, because they've raised the prices on everything, and you only need a quarter of the people buying a $4 comic as you did buying a $1 comic. Of course, when does that become unsustainable is the question. Garlic is your friend. Whoops.
Plus, the U.S. market is very, it has a low attention span as well.
Yeah, I haven't heard any Image rumors recently, but Image is a real mom and pop shop. So I don't know who they're going to merge with Diamond. I know Diamond wants to have its own comic book imprint, but I don't know if it's going to be Image.
And one thing, Jimmy's probably looking to retire.
Yeah, he sold his the museum he had there in the Inner Harbor in Baltimore.
Oh no, he wants his own comic imprint. I know that.
Well, he has ever since he partnered with Gemstone.
So I don't think he's looking to retire in that sense.
I've heard rumors that he is, and they started once he had a pop culture museum in the Inner Harbor right next to the baseball stadium in Baltimore, and he sold that off last year, I think, somewhere in that. And rumors just started popping up left and right when he did that. So.
Got to flood it. No other way to luck into a hit. There you go. That's always been Marvel's. My shop owner says he sells less new comics, makes the same amount of money because of high-priced books each week. Yeah, that's how Marvel and DC have been making their money, is that they raise prices. If they were selling comics for $2, they'd be making no money.
Right. Yeah, that I agree. The thing here isn't so much the cover price. It's the marketing. It's the promotion.
Yeah, they're not sustaining long-term readers. There's
right.
Too much short-term.
Also, the problem I don't.
Because some time ago it was the events.
Where do you market comic books? That's the problem.
I think you start with bookstores.
Bookstores aren't so hot.
Yeah, bookstores are dying themselves.
Indie bookstores have actually come back quite a bit in the past couple of years, but
they have.
They're not as healthy as they used to be.
They're not. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, people, I wouldn't know the best way to market comics is with like someone said earlier, the availability of the anime to the mangas when they used to be able to. G.I. Joe and Transformers had comic books because they weren't allowed. If I don't even know if the law is still the same. It used to be if you made a G.I. Joe cartoon, you couldn't advertise G.I. Joe toys during your cartoon, but they could advertise G.I. Joe comic books. And that helped sales of the comic books and drove sales of the toys too. I don't know if that still is even the same, but that's the only way to.
Sure.
You have to
well, that's easy to solve.
You don't really have a Saturday morning cartoon market like you used to either.
Yeah, but that was easy to solve. You would advertise He-Man toys during the G.I. Joe cartoon, G.I. Joe toys during the Transformers cartoon, and Transformers toys during the He-Man cartoon.
It's like
problem solved.
House at the comic books.
Kickstarter chipped off almost all the fringe comics from the draw. Their A-listers are crowdfunding and self-publishing. I have to say that is true, but there's still tons of indie books. Vault, Scout, they do crowdfunding and direct distribution.
Mm-hmm.
I know because I get the stuff direct distribution.
Suckers and assholes.
Yeah, suckers and assholes.
You crowdfund the comic to pay for the cost, pay more. They give you those buttons that you don't actually need. And then they can, after everything has been paid up, you can buy the comic for cheap.
Yeah, I think the Kickstarter fans are as big as suckers as me, or maybe bigger. Because, as I said before, one of the reasons I never do Kickstarter is because the cheapest if you want to buy a single issue of a Kickstarter, it's $20 with shipping and all the stuff. The only thing I've ever bought on Kickstarter these days are PDFs. They're $5.
Yeah.
Because if you're buying an actual issue, you're paying $20 for an issue. Spawn cards. Yeah, that's the reason Spawn is on my pull list, and the only reason.
See,
in fact, I got it this week.
You could give me Spawn for free, and I'd tell you I paid too much for it.
Yeah. The movies
the best market.
The problem with the movies they're not comic book. At least anime is drawings.
Well, the problem is the movies are marketing for the movies. They're not marketing for comics.
Yeah. And they're marketing for the toys and the tchotchkes. Mm. When you get the comic book, it's nothing like the movie. When you get when you watch the anime and then go get the manga, it at least looks the same.
Yep.
Even if they change stuff, it looks the same. You recognize it. Not so with the movies. You get an Avengers comic, it looks nothing like the Avengers movie. That's just the way it is. It's not a drawing. 9.8 and 2.99, nothing like those two sets of numbers to get comics fans going.
Yeah, when they did the Asterix movies, those actors look like the characters. They even managed to make the Romans look like the Romans in the comic, and they have exaggerated facial features.
Right.
I prefer TV to movies anyway.
I don't. I actually prefer movies.
Yeah, I'm pretty sick of paying so much on Kickstarter. Exactly. Yeah.
And there's another thing about the Kickstarter stuff. I mean, if you like a comic and you tell your friend, they can't buy it.
I just want to tell you.
Sometimes
I got the latest issue of Spawn. Once again, the only reason I'm getting it is it's the last $2.99 comic, and the whole issue was Spawn torturing a vampire. The whole issue was just like, what? Spawn torturing a vampire.
And you paid $3 for that.
I gladly like it. It's the last $2.99 comic, so it's on. Much like Comic Crack is buying those red rooms just because he wants to support the creators. I just want to support the last $2.99 comic.
All right.
Tchotchkes is such a great word. Yeah.
Joni loves tchotchkes.
Yeah, it does remind you of Scott Baio, doesn't it?
Yes, then there's that with Kickstarters, King's Poet. Sometimes the last Kickstarter I did was with was a Steve Ditko one with Robin
Snyder.
They just never sent me my thing. I was like, okay.
Was that?
And you don't realize it till it's over, till months later, when you're like, how come I never got my Ditko book? The Asterisk Films.
The one that Kingpo was talking about, was that John Crixpalusi?
I don't know. John Crixpalusi?
Crixpalusi, he was the guy that did Ren and Stimpy and got in a lot of trouble a couple years ago for some nefarious deeds.
Spawns aren't for reading. I have my own comic shop. Movies used to push sales. Okay. It's not true anymore than comics in their current form are not wanted. Yeah. My comic shop says movies don't push sales at all.
The millennials can read. They're just not reading comics.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the sales of young adult books. That's where the money is. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Young adults.
Those young adults and they're young. Yeah, this Spawn issue is just not a good one. I was just like, some of them are okay.
Compared to what issue?
What was that?
Compared to what issue?
3 issues ago, I think, was a good one. Not last issue, not the issue. And also, once again, let me show you this. I completely skipped this page. There we go. There is no way I'm reading that.
Oh, that's a Frank Miller ripoff. Come on.
Yes, it is. Yes. And there's no way I'm reading it. I haven't read one of those in any issues of this Spawn.
Todd McFarlane has been doing that since Spawn #1.
Yep. And I've been not reading them since issue 316. So since I never bought much Spawn before then. No sketches, just letter from Girls He Diddles.
Yeah, that might be. There was a big fiasco going on there. You think the comics industry is bad? The number of scandals that animation has had in the past 5-6 years makes comics guys look like they're saints.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I'm not a fan of most mangas. It's mostly page flipping for me. Though I do like some of them. I love that. What the heck is the name of that one that the tomorrow? Oh God, I don't have to walk over and see because I forgot it already.
Kill something.
Yeah, all you need is kill. That was my favorite one that I've read in a long time.
I wonder if that guy was a Beatles fan.
Oh no, or it's just one of those crazy translations.
That's possible too.
Has the same problem. Publishing sales are near zero compared to the billions in made movies.
Science fiction's got its own different built-in fan base too. They're a little. Science fiction fans are hardcore compared to comics fans.
There was a time when the science fiction and fantasy section in bookstores over here had nothing but veggie vampires.
Yeah, a lot of the people I knew through YouTube did come back to comics because of the Marvel movies. Yeah, I think some did, and so too they came back because I remember because of DC's New 52, which is now 10 years old. I remember a lot of YouTubers. I think they're gone now, but a lot of YouTubers I saw then they came on with the New 52.
Yeah, I'm like an outlier. I liked the first Captain America movie.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the first Iron Man movie. Thor was okay, and then kind of after that, I'm like, I just don't really care about them anymore.
Although I think we have high expectations of what we expect for the market based on comic book movies. I mean, let's look back to the 1960s when the Batman TV show came on. Batman sales went up, not Archie.
Right.
Why would they? It's not like, I like the Batman TV series, I'm going to buy the Batman comic. It's not, I like the Batman TV series, let me buy Archie. Of course, that doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, there is the Marvel and DC, they put out a ton of trades whenever they have a movie that's related to that movie. There's a spike, maybe, short one, and then it goes back to what it was.
They were related to that movie other than just the name of the character.
Yeah, but to them that's enough. I think they overprint a lot, but that's another thing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I liked this Avengers movie. Now I'm going to start reading Box Office
Spider-Man.
Poison.
Yeah,
Or
box office.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. They're not going to read the indie books. They're not going to read.
Right.
They're not going to read Image even. So why are we expecting that that comic book movies will lift all comics?
They won't. Not in today's market. Now in the '60s, maybe a little more, but not today.
But it didn't. Batman went up,
Right.
not the rest.
Who's Chaplin?
Charlie
Now we're
Chaplin.
done.
He's talking about
Okay.
We're talking about people that have behaved badly over the years. And
Ah,
if you go down that rabbit hole, we'll be here all night.
Yeah. Most sci-fi writers are way worse off than comic writers financially. Wow.
Unless you're already a big established name already, that's true. Yeah.
Mm.
Sci-fi was replaced by paranormal romance. Big time fan base change.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in common really.
Wow, Comic Crack came back in with Spawn. Wow.
I don't think I would have told
And
anybody.
Batman was in no man land.
I don't know. I never had the thing with coming back. I did the switch from Portuguese to English. That was the only difference.
Yeah, I never stopped buying comics. I have been going to the comic shop or newsstand weekly since I was 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, except in college when I had to go, monthly or so.
Yeah.
But I still had a pull list and picked it up all my stuff for the. So I've never not.
College was the first time I actually went to a real comic book shop.
Yeah.
I didn't have a car, but some friends of mine did, and we all drove to Roanoke one day. I was like, oh, wow, look. We got to come back here more often. This is neat.
Even all those years I was working in the Marvel bullpen, I still went into the comic shop every week and bought comics.
Gotcha.
Most didn't. Matter of fact, I swore I never. When you're at Marvel, well, at least before Ike Perlmutter, you always got comps every week.
Yeah.
So you get all the comics from Marvel and DC every week. And I saw a lot of people who, once they left Marvel, i.e. got fired or whatever during one of the many purges in the mid-90s, they never bought comics again. And one of the reasons they never bought comics again is since they got them for free for so long, it felt to them like a come down to have to pay for comics.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I never want to be one of those guys. I don't want to be one of those guys who gives up something that brings me joy because of some weird emotional thing. So I was like, you know what? It may be a come down that I don't get free comics anymore, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. I'm a comic fan. I can buy comics just like every other comic.
Well, you just have to get Bill Mantlo back in the house so he can write a story about you, and then you can get free Marvel comics the rest of your life, like a certain person I know did. So.
My guess is more people know who Robert Crumb is from the movie than have actually read him. Yeah, probably.
I don't know.
I'm a true fiend. I'm just a sucker. Too many other media to compete against. Yeah, potential.
That is true. I mean, there's so much more, audience fragmentation now than there was 60s, 70s, even up through the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's this book I have, and basically the guy's doing one of the chapters is about sales evolution throughout the ages. Mm-hmm. And basically by the 1950s, when people start having TVs at home, that's when comics start going down. Because there's one thing that comics had. It was the only type of color art story that you could bring home until the 1950s, because you couldn't take the movies home. They were just in the movies. Right. And the other thing you had at home, it was radio play. So comics were the only visual thing that you could take home.
Yeah, comics really took over from the pulps in that regard.
Mm-hmm. So when you start having TV, now you have movement. You have something visual to appreciate, and it has movement.
Not only that, TV programming back then through the airwaves was free.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I would have to say, talking about now, TV is such a passive experience that people prefer it. Even lapsed comics fans I know who, were comics fans and then stopped buying them. They don't have. It's easier to sit there and watch a TV show than to read a comic, and that just
and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's what I call the bottom feeder effect.
Yeah.
In terms of biological organisms, you have bottom feeders that just sit there and they consume whatever comes in front of them.
Right.
And then you have other ones that seek out, like predators. They seek out what they like and they will get it.
But it's the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
You work all day. You commute to a job. You work all day. You commute home.
Yeah.
You spend time with the family. You got an hour or two at the end of your day.
Right.
It is easier to just turn on the TV than to read anything.
I've felt like that sometimes too. It's like, you're at work and you have all these ideas of what you want to do when you get home, and then you get home, you don't want to do any of them.
Right. We're living in nerd nirvana, way too much stuff to absorb and feel. Oh, it's endless. There's tons of nerd nirvana. Copyright 62 Lefty Blues. TV had to get good. Back in the day, TV was horrible and did not match up with my comics. Yeah, if you were even in the 70s, if you were a comic book fan, there was a superhero fan, there was not much TV for you. Now there's everything. 20 cents a word used to be paid by the publishers. Unthinkable today. You could live on that, but yeah.
Well, of course, a lot of those guys were cranking out books left and right too.
I'll still never forget what my art history teacher told me. My art history teacher was Irving Sandler. He was the premier art historian of the New York artists. I mean, he's the I don't know, who could we compare him to? The Brian Michael Bendis of art historians. He was that famous among art historians. We're trying to give you a level of his, he wasn't the least bit in reality, but among art historians he was. But the reason he was a premier art historian was especially the abstract expressionist movement in the 50s and 60s. In the early 50s, he said, he lived in New York City, and he could work 10 hours a month to pay his rent.
Yeah.
That's how much time it took him to earn his rent. And that was, if he wasn't making big money, that's just how cheap rent was in some parts of the city in the 1950s.
I mean, even
that allowed him the time to go out and go to shows and meet artists and write stuff.
Yeah, because
I
see a lot of interviews with artists that were living in New York in the 60s and 70s, like Kaluta and Wrights and those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And what they talk about, what they had to pay for rent, you're like, what?
Yeah.
There were cheap.
Yeah. There were still cheap places to live in New York.
Yeah. Not now.
YSD comics have a larger audience than we can see. Floppies, digital, stream. Yeah, I think.
Did they have a larger audience or did they have a longer lasting audience?
I think it's both. I think they've got a longer tail. And what it is streaming is great. I can binge all day. So I don't like to binge, but yeah, it was 2 to 5 cents a word in the 50s pulse. Problem is, it's hard to go back and watch TV shows I grew up. The 70s stuff is so hokey and doesn't stand up. I like some 70s TV shows. I can watch the Rockford Files over and over again.
Yeah, the Rockford Files. It really depends on the show.
Yeah.
Still to this day, the Twilight Zone had some of the best writing that's ever been on TV anywhere.
But yeah, I think comics does have a bigger audience. They're just not in the comic shop. They're not always buying stuff. They're tough to wrangle in any way. And how do you, once again, we're back to how do you market to them? I don't think there's any way to market to comic fans besides house ads. which they do.
I don't know how you would go about generating the want for the product.
Yeah. I just have no idea exactly how. It's like, let's say someone gave you $20,000 to put together which seems to me to be a lot, to put together an ad campaign for the launch of some Marvel or not even a number one issue, a new somebody coming on, give you $20,000 to promote the Daredevil comic. What would you do? Where would you put your money?
Mm-hmm.
In my pocket and run. No.
Yeah, but that is the thing. The places where you can buy the comics require localized advertising.
Yes.
And with $20,000, you can't spread it in order for it to function. But there's no point in doing national advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even like I said, local advertising would just mean the comic shop advertising stuff, sending out posters to the comic. They do that stuff already, but that doesn't get anybody new looking.
Right, and ultimately, it's that comic shops don't know how to advertise to people who are not the regular customers.
They don't know any more than I know. How do you do that?
You remember Beer Bomb opened that Batman specialized shop when the movie came out?
I don't remember that, no.
He was talking about that. It's back in when did that movie come out? Like 89 or something?
Batman 89. I only know from the title.
He put up the equivalent of there's a term, and I can't remember what it's called, like a pop-up shop these days.
Pop-up shop.
But it was just Batman comics, Batman merchandise, and the stuff sold like hotcakes. Mm-hmm. And his marketing was billboards in, I think it was Los Angeles is where it was located.
Mm-hmm.
Or San Francisco, one of the two. But he knew how to do it back then. Now, these days, that probably wouldn't fly as well, but at least he was trying something different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how well, we'd have to see his numbers to know how well it worked.
Yeah.
And if it really worked that well, he'd still be doing it, as would others, so I would think.
Well, he's gotten out of the whole thing anyway.
I know.
Yeah. Right now, the two comic shops that I have in Lisbon, one does mass mail marketing, and the other one does everything on social networks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think most comic shops do things on. Like I said, my comic shop's best feature is its email. It's automatic email. Me getting an email on final order cutoff where I can just click a button and order anything I want. Mm-hmm. That works well for me.
Something I just thought of, just comparing another industry, like a lot of guitar shops, they will do their own videos on YouTube. And the reviews really start becoming more of the personality of the person that's creating the videos as much as the actual product themselves. But I really don't see comic shops doing much comparable to that.
No. Free comic book, like my LCS does Free Comic Book Day, but it does nothing for them.
Yeah.
They loses
money on Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, they see a whole bunch of people they don't see any time else during the year to come in for free comics, right? And it's done. Put all your money in Bitcoin. That's what comic shops. My shops are dead. Go digital. Nah. See, I don't like digital that much.
Well, DC, it would be Batcoin.
My shop owner has been rolling in money from back issues these past few years. New Comics are his lost leader. Yeah, back issues have been doing well from what I hear. Slave must hate me. Funny, when I had a shop, New Comics were all the money. It's totally changed.
Yeah, I mean, it has changed, absolutely.
But it's changed back a couple of times.
Yeah.
First it was back issues, then it was New Comics, then it was back issues, then it was New Comics, then it was new variant comics, then it was back issues of the variant comics that you couldn't sell. Then the market crashed.
So it's like when there's magnetic poles flip, except this happens every few years instead of every few years.
Yeah. Well, for a little while during COVID, it was the rare comic collectors driving the market. And I think that made key issue collectors go out and look for more stuff too.
Yeah, even if it's the first appearance of Deborah Whitman or whatever.
Yeah, whoever.
This is a minor key. First appearance of Deborah Whitman. Wow. Who's Deborah Whitman?
Is that what they mean by a Whitman comic? No, that's
no.
not what they mean.
Yeah, looking for, just because it's the first appearance of somebody. Yeah, it's a supporting character.
Hey, those key issue collectors need key issues to collect.
Yeah, it's like, I wanted the first appearance of Felicity Smoke. Really? Why?
I'm going to complain about page count now. Because this issue of the crossover had a little joke in it where they did previously in crossover, and then they did this. Just put on, these are all pages from previous issues, which you can't read.
That's a complete waste of space.
It was a funny joke. If it didn't take 3 pages away from the actual story was 17 pages.
No, John Byrne not drawing 5 pages of Alpha Flat because everything is in the snow is a joke. Bendis doing 500 people talking in 2 pages, it's a joke. That is a waste of space.
You could, if you dropped out a couple of these ad pages to get your joke in, and gave us the same amount of regular pages, I'd be happier with it. But to waste 3 pages of a comic, 3 pages of a 20-page comic on a stupid gag, just annoyed me.
Yeah, you should demand your money back.
But the comic itself was pretty good. I mean, I got no complaints about the actual comic. The 17 pages that I got to read was good stuff. But that joke and I even liked the joke made me giggle a little when I first turned the page. I got no problem, but I was like, but then when it made me count the pages.
17 pages of story.
Is what, 22, 24?
Usually 22. I'm not sure. Dark Horse had 24 for a while, so did Vertigo. Savage Dragon has 20, but they have a backup story.
You can get the first appearance of Jared in Batman versus Houdini. That's the one where Mark Chiarello drew me.
Painted I have that in a box somewhere.
Yeah, your normal Marvel comic book is 20 pages. Okay. That's standard. But a lot of like indie books are 22, 24, something like that. Yeah, it's 20 pages. It's
20 pages of story. It's 32 pages plus covers, of which only 22 pages are story.
Yeah.
The rest are ads and editorial promotion.
Right. But like I said, not all indie comics are the same, but all Marvel are.
Yeah, they don't have letter pages anymore.
There are indie comics that have a total 24 pages, of which 20 are story. The other 4 are for self-promotion.
Right.
Right, because they can't sell 10 pages of ads, so there's no point in having them.
Most indie comics are, hey, look who's here. Look who's here.
Oh, wow.
Tim, how are you doing, sir?
It's not paginated.
By the way, it's Crossover is the name of the book. It's a bunch of indie guys crossing over. Say something, Tim.
Do I have enough internet to be heard?
Oh, I heard you for a moment.
And he freezes. Where are you?
DC and Marvel are 20 now. Most indies 24. Yeah, I think that's it. Tim's trying to get on. He's got to find the sweet spot in the house. He needs some wireless extenders in order to talk.
Mm-hmm. So much for 5G.
This issue of the Con Crew, which is a French publication, although it's in the English language, 28 pages, nice, thick cardstock cover.
Yeah, like the I said before.
Look at this.
This one's once again is a cardstock cover and is 48 pages.
Yeah,
all comic stuff. No ads. No. Oh, we can hear
What's going
giggling
on,
now.
Tim?
Can you hear me? We got like
Yeah, we
the
can
worst
hear you.
internet in the world now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Ah,
We can hear you.
Are
Can you
moved
see
in-
what we're doing?
Are you moved into the new place?
This is the new place. Yeah,
Okay.
looks big.
Nice.
I'm downstairs. I was going to show you the house, but the internet here is like really bad. I mean, am I coming through it all? Everybody sounds like a
Yeah.
robot, or they freeze when I talk.
No.
You sound fine
You're
to
fine.
us now.
Nice, nice.
But I can tell.
Yeah,
that
we got
there's
moved
always
in on
delay.
Tuesday. Delay. That's what it is.
You've
Yeah.
got a
Yeah,
delay
it's a little
bit.
from us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
Just
show
gotta
you the
find
comic
some-
book room, and
Okay.
this is so funny.
He'll show us the comic book room. I'm anxious to
The
see
comic
it.
book room.
Wow.
It's,
It's got
I
bare
got some work
walls.
to do, but I'm going to paint the walls.
Okay.
Don't paint them yellow.
Paint Batman on them.
Well, I don't think this is going to work tonight, guys. So I might hop off here.
Okay. Because yeah, you got a delay on.
When will you have your computer set up?
It's a crappy internet company, and I've like been bitching since Tuesday since we got in here. But here's the other part of the house. I have room
Wow.
now.
Yeah, you got some room to work with there.
Do,
Yeah, it's like I
Do you have
traded
any-
room. I traded room. Yeah, I traded off my internet for space.
do you have
I
wireless
got a neighbor-
extenders in the house?
Yeah, it's I was right beside of it. I tried to show a picture of the internet box, the router and the modem and stuff. But I have a neighbor named Rodney King who got my mail, and I've got a neighbor who keeps letting go of her dog because she's nosy, and the dog runs over here. So
Next time, keep the dog.
No.
you know
Next
what?
time,
I
keep
might
the
try to
dog.
get on the laptop, see if that works better. So
Get on the laptop.
we'll see.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, later, guys.
See ya.
Okay, we'll catch you in a minute. We almost had Tim.
hmm
We had 3 seconds to go, Tim.
We had lag lad.
Member of the
We
Legion of
almost
Substitute
had
Heroes.
Tim. Let's see. What was else in this comic shop news that caught my eye? Oh, this. I'd like to get this. I never will because it's way too expensive. But they're doing a 20 by 30 inch portfolio of those Marvel Blacklight posters from the 70s.
Oh, gotcha.
You get 12 frameable blacklight posters. This massive 20 by 30 inch portfolio, but it's $125. So that's something I'd get on a lark.
You could get an
Not
arts
something I'd pay
edition. Yeah, you could get an
$125.
arts edition for that price.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because that's what $12.50 a poster. That's about what a poster costs, right? I haven't bought a poster in so long. I don't know, but
And where are you going to put them up?
Yeah.
Oh man, I pre-ordered that a while ago from the shop. Well, you better put your $120 aside.
Are those all like Buscema and Ditka?
Yeah, this one's Gene Colan. You've never seen? I remember seeing them in the 70s.
I remember seeing a Doctor Strange blacklight poster.
And speaking of suckers and assholes, here's Paper Girls, the complete story trade paperback, $50 price tag on it, which for 30 issues is dirt cheap. I paid $3 or $4 an issue for that.
That's
I can't remember
almost
what
half the price. Yeah.
So it's like, thanks to me subsidizing it, someone can get it for a lot cheaper, and they probably won't even have to pay $50.
Now you can just buy it again for half the price that you paid the first time.
I actually sold my issues. So I got my money. I think I got my money back for that one. I only have the last, because when it went on hiatus or something, it all of a sudden became hot for a minute. And I'm like, you know what? I may as well sell my issues. Those ones went across the river to White Plains. So I sold like 25 issues for like $75. Yeah. Which is, I think, what I paid for them.
Right.
And then I got the last 5 issues. I'm like, I wish I could just give this guy the last 5 issues, because all I got is the last 5 issues sitting over there in paper. What good do they do me? That was one of those that I enjoyed reading from month to month, but I'll never read it again. Yeah. Trade paperbacks are better deals and can be sold in major bookstores. Yeah. Well, they're better deals because they're already paid for. Without people like me buying the issues for $4 an issue, trade paperbacks would be $50 instead of $25.
Yeah, when comics were $3, original graphic novels at DC were 96 pages, $25 hardcover, 15 softcover.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's why I say you're a sucker and an asshole. Those are your two choices. If they didn't have comics, those trade paperbacks would not be good deals. And you can see it too in the small run stuff, like like some of those epic, like the epic edition, like the Invaders I have back there. That's like a $35 trade paperback because it's short run. Nobody has bought the Invaders in, since the 70s. Yeah. And they had to recolor everything and digitize it and do all that work on it. So it's like a lot of like the Marvel and DC, the smaller stuff is expensive. Batman is cheap, Spider-Man is cheap, but the Invaders aren't. And, other stuff like that isn't.
Right.
Yeah,
it actually has to pay for itself. Let me see.
I bought a new print of the Long Halloween a couple of years ago, and it was remarkably cheap, like $20 for 12 issues, and that's because the Long Halloween keeps getting reprinted.
Yeah, this one's $25. This little thin Invaders #3, because it's got to pay for itself. 2007, this came out as $25. It'd be more than that now, but that's why stuff like this has to pay for itself.
Right.
Unlike Paper Girls, which is paid for.
Jeez.
Oh, right next to it, we were speaking of Western comics at the beginning. There's Sergio Carello's Lone Ranger, Volume 2. Who wrote this? Matthews? It was good stuff.
Remember.
Brett Matthews.
I liked it.
Yeah, and it's got, those are the John Cassidy covers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah, I usually don't like when they have a top-rated cover artist that's different from the interior art. But in this case, it was good because Sergio Carello is good.
Yeah. And that's so normal now that I don't even notice it.
Yeah, but the thing is, most artists nowadays, they're terrible. They only pay well to the cover artist, and it's an Alex Ross or something.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, I don't really buy a lot of Marvel and DC comics that do that. But at least if I see an Alex Ross cover, I know he's not doing the inside. Oh, there's Tim again. How are you doing, Tim? Can you hear us?
It's a little bit better, just a tad. Okay. I can't see Paolo, and you're talking really slow, like you're on NyQuil.
Ah, well, that's a little weird. We'll see if it picks up for you.
Yeah, your lag is better. You just got more of like a reverb effect now.
I think that's just because he's in a big room.
Maybe. Could be.
But my next comic I got this week was The Department of Truth. This continues to be a good book. I enjoy this one, all conspiracy stuff. Now we're getting more into the story of this one individual guy. It's got this weird Sienkiewicz-like art. It was just another, and then I like this woman with the like X's over her eyes is like kind of she's one of the mysterious villain characters, and I think she's got the best covers. So it's like this wasn't even the one on my pull list. I switched it out for this one because it's like I think she's got the best covers. Department of Truth, Fox News.
Don't get me started.
No, Alex
make
Jones.
Better use of the lot. Yeah, I do that too. I've been going to the library for the last few years. Maybe we need this new model. Big movie of IP followed by nice trade. No, see the no monthly version means the trades are going to be really expensive. Well, I don't know why everybody who likes trades thinks there shouldn't be monthly comics.
I see the thing here. I see the possibility for large print runs of a trade paperback, which normally does not happen. But of course, then you'll have to talk promotion.
And then without the monthly comic, where did the IP come from?
Yeah, I just don't know why because I've had this discussion with people who are trade buyers who are always like, wow, we don't even need monthly comics. And it's like, you don't need monthly comics because you don't buy them, but you do need them because you're not willing to pay $50 a trade.
Right.
And it's kind of like, if people are buying monthly comics, why would you not sell them to them? That's what always baffles me about when people say, we should get rid of monthly comics. It's like, why? That's like saying get rid of TV shows and only have movies.
Or only have DVD sales, or only have Netflix.
I like Blu-ray.
The reason... going back to the French, the French were already compiling everything into albums when they started doing the weekly magazines, because the first albums were pre-published not in magazines but in newspaper supplements. So that market to change that allowed the public to change naturally to albums only was already there. And eventually it became the largest seller. I guess you probably think that those are expensive because the albums cost $20.
Yeah. But Saul's comment, I mean, the IP is just there, built up over the decades. It was built over the decades through monthly comics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that too. It's funny how people gleefully want to end and it's always people who don't buy monthly comics. It's like, well,
I used to work with a guy that swore to God every day that print was dead and it was all digital, and I kept coming up with facts and figures to prove what he was saying was actually wrong. Mm-hmm. I think he actually wanted everything to go digital and didn't want to have print copies of anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I just find it strange how like the people most passionate about getting rid of monthly comics don't buy monthly. It's like, it's like, why do they care?
There is me wanting to
get rid of soap operas.
There's a quote that Tony Isabella had in Comic Buyer's Guide years ago that said, "Hell hath no fury like the uninvolved."
Yeah. Here the Panini Disneys, they're making no move to end those. They are weekly. There are weeklies and monthlies. They're all anthologies. There's no move to go beyond that. Of course, if there were, they could do trade paperbacks, which would still be sold through newsstands. But what they have is enough of a buildup of material that they can reprint stories,
right,
and not reprint a single one for the next 10 years or more.
Does Panini still do like sticker albums over in Europe?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can still do sticker albums. I don't know who's doing them.
Right.
But they are.
The key to just not buying stuff out of habit is to just buy comics you like. I find that. I mean,
But you're buying Spawn just because it's cheap. not because.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, but that's okay. I don't mind. I only do that with one comic.
Gotcha.
If I was doing that with 12 comics, it would be tedious.
So it's
And I
fun for Lost
wouldn't.
Leader. Yeah.
Yeah, I buy that with just as soon as it goes up to $4, I'm dropping it. But Panini still has that market. But speaking of comics that are mediocre, and I'm buying just out of habit. Not that I'm buying this out of habit. It's only a 4-issue. Gru versus Tarzan. Like I said, it was the double page spread in the first issue that sold me on Gru versus Tarzan.
Right.
But we wouldn't have another double page spread like that since. And it's just okay. This is one.
It's Sergio.
Yeah, it's Sergio. It's not. I'm not telling you it's bad in any way. It's just okay. It's not the best Sergio I've ever read, and a lot of it is not Sergio because it's Tom Yates' Tarzan story, which is.
And Sergio had his already done 2 years before Tom did.
Right. It's just okay.
Right.
Which I think is what when you end up buying comics out of habit every week, because especially the Marvel and DC stuff, when you're used to buying it, you end up with a ton of just okay stuff.
Going back,
so if I went to the shop every week and bought 6 just okay comics, I might not want to buy comics.
Going back to digital stuff, there's a tie-in with Gru because there's a Gru fan group on Facebook, and there's one guy that is just a raging asshole about this. Is always bringing up to Dark Horse, just beating a dead horse. Why don't you do digital Gru? Why don't you do everybody's just like, stop, dude. We've explained it. And Mark Evanier and Sergio actually have I think it's a weekly YouTube, and it doesn't last 5-10 minutes thing where they explain. They've never been able to come up with a model that they were happy with where they felt like they would get paid and the fans would have to pay too much for it.
Right.
And also, Sergio is not a fan of huge omnibus compilations either.
Mm-hmm.
I am, but he's not. But so that's probably not going to happen either. But that's going to be the last of the Gru crossovers.
You could do the epics. All of the Gru material there is, they'd probably 5 omnibuses.
Yeah, he doesn't like omnibus books because he feels they're too hard to physically read. He prefers smaller trade paperbacks. It's got like
Guardians of the Galaxy. That's not exactly true. The movie was made because there already was a comic run that had steady sales, and it made it a cult hit, which was the Dan Abnett run that came out of Annihilation, and the movie is based on that. Although I imagine that they had a tough time selling the talking tree and the raccoon.
Yeah,
you remember when Groot was actually a villain?
And do you think the Guardians of the Galaxy comic sells more now than it did before the movie? I don't know because it's been canceled and relaunched many times.
It has the same life cycle of any other Marvel comic.
Yeah,
right.
4 issues.
No, about 15, 16. I think the bend is run at about 25.
Gru Tarzan is the weakest Gru comic I can remember.
Yeah, I'll take the weakest Gru over the strongest Spawn any day, but that's just
well, the problem is there's 3 stories going on. There's a story with Mark Evanier and Sergio Argoni going to a comic shop, and Sergio Argoni is somehow lost at a zoo.
They always have a framing element for these crossovers that they do, whether it's the Star Wars one or the Conan one.
But this isn't just a framing element. This is 1/3 of the story.
Right. There's always a story about how they got to the point where this is
right. But like I said, this is a third of the story is that, a third of the story is Gru, and a third of the story is Tarzan. Right. And Gru and Tarzan only meet in like 1/10 of the story.
Yeah. I mean, that's
weird. It's very
for their crossover stories. That's a very standard setup.
Yeah. Same
thing happened with Conan too.
Yeah, I don't know if I can't remember the last Gru I read. I think I read one of those.
Well, this is going to be the last Gru crossover with another character.
It's just okay. Who wants to do a read, rip, and slab? Let's see what we got. Let me share my screen. There we go. We have got 1979 Marvel last issues. The last issue of Tarzan, the last issue of Dracula, and the last issue of John Carter Warlord, all coming out from Marvel in 1979.
Yeah, Play of the Gods is a good, pretty decent story arc, Damien. It sure is.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a different rationale than I usually go on these.
Yeah?
Yeah. Usually it's what I want to read first that I haven't read. I'm going to slab Tomb of Dracula, probably because that's the one to bring in the most money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read Tarzan because I haven't read it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to rip up John Carter because I've already read it.
Ah. Is that if I remember right, the last issue of John Carter, or somewhere near the last, was like a relaunch by Chris Claremont.
I don't remember.
And I remember I remember at the time really liking it, and then it was like over the next issue or something. I can't remember right now, but that may be
it. Damien brings up a good point. This is a painful choice because I would read all three of those books. And
I want the choice to be painful. King Spo wants to read Mars, slab Dracula, and tear Tarzan.
Fair enough.
I'm going to read Tarzan and slab John Carter because I love those covers, and I'm going to rip Tomb of Dracula because I have no interest in that comic. Never did. I've never had any interest in that comic.
Out of the three of these, Tomb of Dracula was my favorite, but I haven't read it since.
Was that?
I think I'm gonna have to read it again. I'm going to read the last issue of Tomb of Dracula, which means I'm going to slab John Carter and rip up Tarzan.
You Edgar Rice Burroughs haters, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Sleepy readers with King Spoet. He's reading Mars.
No matter which way you go, with you got 2/3 chance of ripping up a Edgar Rice Burroughs story there.
Yeah, that's right. It was funny because I was just looking on, Mike's Amazing World of Comics. I was like, oh, look at this. And like I come up with themes for these just kind of as I look at a random year or month. I was like, oh, I saw it was near the end of Tarzan and John Carter's run. I was like, oh, what else ended in 1979?
I always thought DC's version of Tarzan was far superior to Marvel's.
I don't know.
Me personally, that's just me.
Oh, I know what you mean. I mean, let me see, let me remove this. I only discovered DC's version of Tarzan as back issues.
Yeah.
Because I was not a DC fan. And I remember I was reading some of Marvel's Tarzan, which I thought was okay.
Yeah, it was. That's what I thought. It was just okay.
Yeah, it was just okay. It wasn't great. And when I went back and read some of DC's stuff, I liked it better because it had better art.
Oh, yeah.
That's not the game, architectural foam panels and corner. You have to rip one, read one, and slab another. It's the F, marry, kill of comics. The game isn't read them all. I liked it. But the problem I had as I read DC Tarzan over time was there was no point to it. There was nothing to it that I could hang my hat on. That I thought Marvel's Tarzan was more ambitious story-wise. I found DC's Tarzan had no ambition to it. Though the art was nicer and the stories were... That's why I'm torn which one I think is better. I don't think either of them is great. But I liked the ambition of Marvel's Tarzan, even though I didn't think it was that good.
Yeah,
DC's Tarzan was like, here's a jungle man, he's fighting an animal this week.
King's
No, that was Dell. Actually, no, Dell did a good job adapting the ERB material. The Russ Manning style. The Russ Manning was miles above most of Dell's artists.
Oh, by far.
But it was
by a large margin. Yes.
But it was still very traditional.
I agree with Sleepy Reader. I don't ever remember Tarzan eating anybody, people that he killed.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I remember he stole the clothes of the first human he killed.
Do what?
He stole the clothes of the first human he killed.
Oh, yeah.
Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, like it's tough to put my finger on what I didn't like about the DC Tarzan, but I think I found the writing simplistic. Is all it is.
I can see that.
I still just realized.
Well, yeah,
you're not playing the game. Sure. We're none of us are actually reading, slabbing, or ripping any of them.
Right. It's
just
a thought exercise.
Yeah, this is a Hobson's choice. You have to make the choice. Which one do we kill first, your wife or your daughter?
Sophie's choice.
Mm.
Here, let's see what other one I have lined up. We'll see if he can... Failed to open page. I wonder what that is. Here's one that's easier just because I don't know any of them. So it's easier to rip any individual one. Let's see. These are...
Slap myself in protest.
DC 1999 annuals. Batman, what the hell Wonder Woman, and Alien versus Predator. Dark.
Oh no, not JLA. No, oh god.
And it's JLA. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, you don't need to know.
But they have nice Art Adams covers on those two.
Mm-hmm.
And okay. I've never read one of those.
The one I read is easy. The other two are hard.
You can protest all you want, but you either play the game or you don't.
I am the one guy on the planet that hates both Alien and Predator.
How can you hate both Alien and Predator?
They're boring.
Ugh.
The first Alien movie?
These young kids.
Was not boring.
I find that type of horror boring. I mean, just shoot everything. You'll get it eventually.
That's the second Alien movie.
Well, the problem with the Alien movies is you have to hobble the humans in order to make the aliens terrifying. Because humans with guns can take out the aliens because the aliens have no long-range weapons. So you have to hobble the humans in order to make it terrifying. So that kind of...
Well, I mean, you're putting them in an enclosed tin can in space in the first movie.
Exactly. That's how you hobble the humans. And in the second one, which I like both movies. I'm not telling you they're bad.
I still like the first.
I'm just saying that's the formula you have to do. They put them on a planet with limited weaponry. When they were eventually able to get on the ship and nuke them from orbit, all was good. Tarzan of the Apes wiki. He suddenly feels revulsion when he considers eating one of the African men he killed.
Considering eating one and then actually eating one is a big difference there.
He's going to read Wonder Woman, slab Batman, and rip AVP. So I think I want to read AVP out of all these.
I know which one I want to read, but I can't decide from the other two.
You know, I'm going to read slab AVP. I'm going to slab AVP. It's got our Adams art. So I'm going to read Wonder Woman.
Art Adams covers. AVP, I don't think does.
No, yeah, but it's got a nice cover.
Oh,
It
yeah,
does
it
have,
does.
even if I don't like the characters. So I'm going to read Wonder Woman and rip Batman. There are a lot of ridiculous Batman comics that surely are better than turning him into a gorilla.
Think about your biology, okay? If your blood is acid, you better hope you're not peeing out your blood. Biologically, that makes no sense at all. Okay.
I'm going to read AVP, slab Batman, and rip Wonder Woman. Oh, man, to rip up that nice Art Adams.
I was thinking that myself, but I'm thinking I'm going to read AVP. Okay.
That's what I'm doing. I'm reading AVP. You know what? I've changed my mind. I'm going to slab Wonder Woman. That cover is better than the Batman one. I like the Art Adams apes. So I'm ripping Batman.
I take that back, probably because I've got that AVP in a box somewhere. I'm going to slab AVP.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to rip up Batman and read Wonder Woman just because I'm so familiar with Batman, and Wonder Woman would be something different.
Ah. He's going to date Wonder Woman, bro Batman, and kill AVP. AVP. Yeah, that AVP. I can't remember
don't date the alien, and I think you'll be okay.
I don't think I've read any AVP except in Dark Horse Presents. The
AVP stuff was not as good as either the standalone Predator or the standalone Alien stuff.
I don't know that I've read standalone Aliens or Predator. I'm trying to think. I've read them in Dark Horse Presents.
Right.
On their own, I don't think I've ever bought one.
Earlier Alien stuff from Dark Horse is actually pretty good. You eventually got to a certain point where they're crossing, but like the only crossover they didn't have was like Alien versus Betty Page. You know? Predator is kind of hit and miss. The early Alien stuff is actually pretty decent. Rick Geary did little illustrated novels of them, like a widescreen format hardback, which was about, I don't remember the title of it. I have it in the other room there. There was a cybernetic ant that was designed as a spy to go in and do recon on the aliens. And Rick Geary drew it, and it's actually pretty good.
Wow.
Later on, it just got silly.
Date, bro, and kill. It's F, marry, kill. Everybody knows that. Or kiss, marry, kill, as the rated G version goes. I don't know what broing somebody is. Is that kissing them or marrying them?
Making friends with them.
Making friends.
Bromance.
Maybe you fist bump or something. And you eat
not
pizza.
Much of a commitment. He removes the staple and match the spreads and covers, replacing it. Each comic becomes an entirely discreet but worthless reading experience. What I win. You won an unreadable comic. Better known as the latest issue of Spawn.
You won a no prize from the printer. Yeah.
Jim Woodring wrote an Alien miniseries. Wow.
He did.
You win my heart, AFPC. There you go. That's something that's very valuable.
I can't remember which one it was. There was a 2-issue little miniseries they did of Aliens where they had a whole bunch of A-string talent that was working on them. Each one did like 2 or 3 pages.
By the way, this is why Comic Crack ordered the black light posters, is because on the Gene Colan Iron Man one, it says crack up the top.
Ah, gotcha.
So that's how he had to get it, because that's where his name comes from. Even crack with 2 K's at the end.
So now you can hang crack on your wall. It was this 2-issue Alien thing. It was pretty neat because it was done by all kinds of different creators. And Gary Gianni drew one of the sequences, which I love Gary Gianni's work, but Jeff Darrow inked it. Wow. And you couldn't tell it was Gary Gianni. It looked like Jeff Darrow because he's got that heavy line weight. Yeah.
Jeff Darrow. And there was Dark Horse put out a lot of Aliens and Predator stuff. I just never got any of it.
They did. The early Alien stuff, especially that first series that Mark Nelson drew, that was pretty good.
Right. It was popular for a while, I remember.
Right.
I actually got it from a Captain Victory comic,
Oh, wow.
spelled exactly the same. Wow.
Yeah.
Captain Victory is probably my favorite Kirby. I love that series. It is just so filled with crazy, over-the-top Kirby ideas.
I don't know what my favorite Kirby would be.
I had a subscription to it as a kid, too, from Pacific Comics. Before I was going to the comic shop regularly.
One thing I would like to see him do more of, even though it's probably not my favorite, was the the science fiction comic strip he did with Wally Wood, Sky Masters.
Oh, okay. I think there's a collection of them, right?
Yeah, there's a few different collections of it now.
Really Dark Horse licensed property comic. Yeah, I remember that. I just never bought. I just always shied away because that was the time when licensed property was all terrible. So I remember when Dark Horse got a good reputation for doing licensed comics. I was like, whoa.
They did decent work for years and years with both the Star Wars and the Conan licenses. And then when Marvel gets them, everybody goes crazy. I still do not get that.
Captain Victory Silver Stars. Yet I only got to read all of Silver Star when they put it out in the oversized hardcover. That was a really good one. I enjoyed that. So
do you remember Topps did a series of like one shots of some Kirby titles?
Oh yeah.
Satan 6 was it Blast Star?
I got that stuff.
Yeah, I have some of those.
But they were supposed to put out a Captain Victory oversized hardcover too. But Eric Larson could never find good copies of the original art to reproduce from. So that project ended. New Gods. Now, where's that movie? There was supposed to be one coming out, but yeah, those are the licensed ones that they...
I was talking to a friend earlier today, and I kind of noticed that Marvel was putting out movies in a way that negates any plan by DC to exploit their properties. That's why they rushed Thanos to be an enemy in the Avengers. Now when Darkseid shows up, now he's going to look like a copy. And
I don't think they rushed Thanos. It took a long time to bring Thanos to. It took years.
But Darkseid was if DC decided to do the Justice League like they did, Darkseid was the obvious choice. So Thanos had to appear in an Avengers movie, and now they're doing the Eternals before the New Gods come out.
I don't know if that's as well planned.
I think
it is. Especially since the Eternals. The Eternals is nothing like the Eternals. So
I think somebody in there had that idea.
I think that might be as much of a coincidence as it is strategic planning.
Yeah, I don't know. Especially since the Eternals doesn't look anything like Jack Kirby's Eternals.
No. And New Gods is not going to look, but
so
the best way to win a comparison war is knowing that yours was the second one to come out in the comic, is put out the movie first.
I'm just saying, I think Marvel's movies have been so well planned that I don't think they care about a comparison war. There's no comparison. Sure, there's a comparison war in the comics all our lives, but I don't think those movie makers care one bit about comparing Marvel movies to DC movies.
I'm sure somebody there had that idea, and whoever's paying for the movies agrees.
I don't know if that's what I think movies.
It's not driving it, but it is part of the plan.
Someone might have giggled over it after the fact, but movies are too expensive to be driven that way. They're just way too expensive, and it takes too for somebody to say we have to beat DC to the punch with Thanos. I just don't think that's.
Thanos is a good villain, but so is Darkseid, so they have to do it. There's no reason whatsoever to do an Eternals movie.
Yeah, but I don't even think. I think if they bring out Darkseid in a JLA movie, no one will care that He's vaguely
They're gonna,
resembling
especially because there are people who are gonna think that it's just that the movies are new stuff and that everything is new. I mean, there were people complaining that that the Lord of the Rings movies was copying from RPGs.
But there's always going to be people complaining. Stop people from complaining. I don't think these people who run these giant movie studios care one whit.
Yeah, it's like when the John Carter movie came out. I heard some people at work saying it looked like they were ripping off Star Wars. I'm like, no, that's where Star Wars got its inspiration from, you idiots.
Yeah,
pissed off about that.
Well, I don't think I've ever seen anyone.
He doesn't see anybody now, does he? I don't think I've seen anyone. Click. Yeah, well, I guess that's why.
Yeah, now we got stuck with King's Poet in front of us.
Kicked me out. I was just saying, I don't
think I've seen anyone, then you just disappear.
Yeah, I got kicked out. I don't think I've ever seen anyone whose favorite Kirby was the early X-Men.
Right.
Unless you're
but it's a childhood thing for him, so I understand it. WB planning? Oxymoronic.
I think also, too, there's this, I don't know, in pop culture in the past few years, I don't think people are concerned about quality as much as who can get the best insult on something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of like the comments, and do you remember the "Ain't It Cool" news comments, where they had these? I mean, it just basically became a nobody really cared about the quality of the content; they cared about who could come up with the best insult first. And I think that's somewhat true with Marvel and DC movies. DC could probably put out the best movie ever done that made Citizen Kane look like crap in comparison, and people would still say, well, "It's not a Marvel movie."
Yeah, but like I said, I just don't think that ever enters the minds of the movie makers. I don't think they care about
they are aware enough that if some properties can be confused with each other, I mean, remember when there was...
I think that becomes more of a marketing thing later on. It's not thought of at the time that the movie itself.
It is because they've done it before with disaster movies. The ones where they had to blow up a meteorite, and there were movies with hurricanes in the same year.
Yeah, but those weren't, Marvel and DC competing against each other.
No, but there is competition between studios, and they are aware that if they come up with a similar concept, one of them has to beat the other to the punch.
Well, it's always a Roger Corman movie that's going to come first.
They are in competition, but these big movies are also like ocean liners. Once they get going in one direction, it's really tough to turn them any other way. So once that initial stuff gets done, there's no change in a whole lot of things.
All right.
And yes, they moved on to the Eternals now. I think that's the next movie to come out.
Yeah, the trailer is so boring.
Yeah, it is. Kirby Machinery is never going to look a tenth of as cool in a movie.
The thing is, the Eternals doesn't really have a very coherent story. There's a basic plot there, but it never develops into a story. The cool part about the Eternals is the Kirby art and the Kirby concepts. Now you remove everything Kirby from the Eternals, and that's the movie.
Right. What it is with the Eternals was very 1970s Chariot of the Gods. Yeah. And the problem was, because as a kid, like I said, reading when I was reading the comics as a kid, I also was very interested in the behind the scenes stuff going on and what goes into making a comic. And one of the things I figured out from the Eternal, because I didn't have all the issues. Probably the first issue of the Eternals I got was around issue 10, the Cosmic Powered Hulk stuff. And then I got some back issues too, from wherever. And I could tell just by reading the story that the Cosmic Powered Hulk wasn't supposed to be in that story. That was an attempt of them to sell the comic by putting the Hulk in it. Me as a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old understood that just reading the comic. So If you read the first, I don't know how many issues of the Eternals, maybe 6, 7, 8. The story there is about, which is one of the reasons it didn't fit in the Marvel universe, and why I hate the Eternals after they fit in the Marvel universe. The story was about the Earth facing judgment of these space gods who we couldn't do anything about.
Right.
It was like there was nothing to be done about these giant space gods were coming back to Earth and deciding if we were going to live and die. And what were we going to do about that? What were the Eternals going to do about that? What were the Deviants? How that all affected? But there was literally nothing we could do about their judgment. When they integrated it into the Marvel universe, the Celestials just became the next level of power. With a special sword, you can kill them. Right. So that was the beginning of the story. But then they made them change it. They put the cosmic, and then it just
even before the Cosmic Hulk, there is that issue when they're trying to invade their stronghold in Mexico.
Right.
And there's this caption saying Nick Fury's man. Because they have blue jumpsuits, they could pass for SHIELD agents. And I was like, wait, this is in the Marvel Universe? Why does it have to be in the Marvel Universe?
Right.
Like when they brought back Star-Lord after 25 years of nobody caring about him. And no, it's in the Marvel Universe. Why? I mean, I have the story from the 70s by Byrne. There's nothing here that says it's in the Marvel Universe. Why do you have to put it in the Marvel Universe? It doesn't make sense.
So they could do a crossover with Conan.
I don't know.
Put him in a love triangle with not a love triangle. He can do a threesome with Gamora and Nova.
I don't actually remember buying the comic, so that means someone may have given it to me. But I think it was a 2-parter. It made me buy the first part. I think I got the second part. It made me look for them buy the first part, because I think I remember doing that, and then buying more Eternal, because it fascinated me. Because in reading that story, it wasn't the Hulk; it was the comic. But the Hulk was my favorite then, so if the Hulk didn't get me to buy it, at least definitely got me to read it. But I could tell the Hulk wasn't supposed to be in the comic. That was the weird thing, because I, had been reading Hulk comics up until that point. That was so reading that comic, I knew the Hulk wasn't supposed to be in there, and that wasn't the Hulk, and that's what I found weird about it and fascinating, kind of, and that's how I figured. And like I said, by reading other stuff like Omega, there were a lot of comics in the late 70s when I was buying as a kid that were kind of failures. And you could see them trying because they were failures, like Omega the Unknown, trying to change the direction of the comic. And it was obvious, because it was all of a sudden the comic was about a completely different thing. So that was one of those that made me think that, they're trying to change they're trying to get me interested in this comic by putting the Hulk in it, but it's not the Hulk. They're trying to still make it part of their own story, but get me interested in it because of the Hulk. It's like, that was one of those behind the scene things I peered into.
Right.
It's like when Byrne took over Starbrand in the new universe, and that issue, he goes to the comic convention, and they put the X-Men on the cover, but it's not the X-Men; it's people cosplaying.
I think Damien's just trying to get me riled up with that comment.
Yeah, the Hulk. I think the Hulk was a robot some college students were trying to build, and then one of the Eternals made him cosmic powered.
It'd been funny if it was Byrne Robotics.
I love the Omega the Unknown. The first series is one of my favorites, and I think that the Lethem series was actually pretty good. It was almost like a tribute to the original series. I bought that as a collected edition when it came out.
Oh, it just dawned on me that Marvel could do Alien Brood crossover. Marvel on both sides.
I read the Omega the Unknown finale in the Defenders, the one that had to be done.
Terrible.
It was, but there was a thing with Marvel at the time, and they all must have hated children because they kept they kept kidnapping Franklin Richards or making him comatose or taken to another dimension.
I didn't know what to do with them.
So Franklin became the Lois Lane equivalent.
But Lois Lane was supposed to be a joke. Here, no, it was like malevolent. And they did the same with Omega the Unknown, because the way they got rid of James Michael Starling, they blew up a 12-year-old in a Marvel story with the comic code.
I've purged everything out of my mind about that story except that it was awful.
Yeah, they blew up a 12-year-old, and his girlfriend from middle school was watching.
Oh boy!
Moondragon. The lucky thing is that Moondragon was already on the team, so Moondragon better have erased that from her mind.
Wow, the latest issue of Terry Moore's Serial, issue 7. It's good. It's Terry Moore. He does good comics. It's good. This serial killer she's hunting down is just so ruthless. Because the story is the lead character right here looks like a 12-year-old girl, but is actually an ancient demon. And serial refers to she's hunting down a serial killer who killed her childhood friend. Her childhood friend was an adult now, but she was the friend of the child, not the demon. But the serial killer is this woman who's actually killing pedophiles. But she's also killing to cover her tracks. And she killed this woman's friend because she was married to the pedophile. So she figures she's guilty. And like in this issue, the serial killer was working as a receptionist at like a psychologist's office. So she was using that cover to find the pedophiles. But she just found out that this other woman is tracking her. So it's like she killed her boss. And it was just like ruthlessly. She's just, it's like you feel some sympathy for this serial killer who's tracking down pedophiles. But then she's just so ruthless, you feel no sympathy for her. And the little girl who's tracking her down was actually an evil demon who's done some bad things in her lifetime. So it's this really weird dynamic of who are you rooting for? Yeah, the Defenders thing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. What issue was that in the Defenders? I may have gotten rid of them. Now I kind of want to read them again just to see how awful it was.
I think it was 77, 78 off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere around. I remember the general area it was in.
They usually ended this type of storylines in Marvel Team Up or Marvel 2-in-1, but this one they did in the Defenders.
Yeah. And it wasn't even Steve. And like Steve Gerber had just finished writing the Defenders a little while before. So it wasn't even him finishing it up. It was some random writer.
I think it was Stephen Grant because I remember him mentioning it in when he had his CBR column.
Ah, okay. I just remember being so disappointed by it. Because Omega the Unknown was all about this mystery of what was going on. And they just made him an alien, and there was an alien war going on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think that Gerber explained to anyone what was supposed to be going on. And
you're saying he wrote the same plot as Prometheus 35 years earlier.
They wrote the same plot as everybody ever wrote.
And they told Grant to do it. I think they were pissed off at Gerber at the time because of the Howard the Duck lawsuit, and they were going to ruin everything he wrote.
Yeah, I imagine there is no way a random writer of the Defenders would want to finish up the Omega the Unknown series on his own.
No, they told him to do it.
Yeah, they told him to do it. Otherwise, he'd just be like, "What? I got my own stories I want to tell."
Right.
It was one of those.
And he must have looked at the issue number 8 had ended. Okay, how do I get out of this one? Yeah, I don't care. Let's blow up a 12-year-old.
Exactly. Yep. 12-year-old, get rid of him. Space alien robot, whatever.
Because the space alien robot was already dead. I think Grant explained it. He looked at that list page. Nah, there's no way Omega can get out of this one. He's dead.
He should have brought back Rom to kill the 12-year-old kid.
Grant never. I'm trying to remember what is the interesting that Stephen Grant produced in comics, because I remember seeing his name in some Marvel stuff around the late 70s, early 80s. I don't know if he did anything at DC.
Speaking of stuff you read years later and is terrible, Whisper. Stephen Grant wrote that.
Oh.
And I bought it all as it was coming out and enjoyed it because it was kind of different. It was this lady ninja thing. This is in the mid-'80s. About 10 years ago, I was missing just a couple issues of it, which I got at mycomicshop.com for like $1 a piece. They were dirt cheap.
Yeah, and he had something called Badlands. I think I have the Brazilian edition of that.
I don't remember that one. But I couldn't make it through more than an issue or two of Whisper. I want to forget this idea. I am not reading 30 issues of this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't know if I'd call Rom a gem, but it was always solid.
Mm-hmm.
The metal, I don't know about a gem.
Yeah, I do.
Solid. I bought it.
The first half of the run is interesting, but it really starts going at full speed after the Bill Mantlo gets rid of the original Dire Wraiths and puts in the sorcerers in place with the new look.
I still think they missed a marketing opportunity not to put out a digital compilation on a CD-ROM.
Mm-hmm. Well, they can't.
The ROM CD-ROM.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I remember liking that was one of those that I bought the first issue of, was like, this is back when I was a kid. Then I think I bought the Jack of Hearts issue of and liked it, which was like around issue 15, somewhere around there, 12. And then the X-Men made an early crossover appearance in ROM.
Yep.
And I bought those 2 issues and then bought it till the end after that. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I noticed something. It wasn't just at ROM, but I think there were a couple of other appearances and stuff that Mantlo was writing. I'm pretty sure that around that time, 78, 79, 80, he was making a play for the X-Men.
Yeah.
And Claremont just stayed with the comic. I mean, eventually Mantlo left comics before Claremont left the X-Men.
Well, there was also that fiasco with him plagiarizing Harlan Ellison's story. That didn't out well for him either.
Yeah.
Apparently he did that a bit. And that's what we were talking about, Comic Crack. The Omega Wrap-Up.
Yeah.
By Stephen Grant, which I haven't read since 1970, 9, and hated it then. Being the big Omega fan I was. What was interesting to me about Omega, too, that was one of those I didn't buy off the stands, but I got in the Kid Comic Book Network all the issues at once. So I got to read it. That was one I got to read from back to front, from top to bottom, a few times, and see all the, all the changes that.
So it's like the comic equivalent of binge watching back then.
Yeah, and it was always like a graphic novel to me, because there was a beginning and a middle and an end kind of thing. There was not that there was an end to the story, but there was an end to the comic. And so it was like reading the Torah, Omega the Unknown, to me. Love the Vince Giorano, Rich Larson issues of Whisper, though. Giorano, Badlands with Grant. Yeah, I remember liking them back then, but trying to reread them, I couldn't do it. All right, well, we should wrap up now. We're at our end time.
Yeah, we're yakking for a while.
Yeah, we've been talking for a good 2 hours and 44 minutes. So you guys all have a good week out there.
Yes.
And we will catch you next week at this time. Maybe Tim will have his internet up and running.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
We saw him very briefly this week. All right. Everybody have a good one. Any final words? Just
Nope.
some salutes and finger. Isaac the bartender, double finger pulling.
Mm-hmm.